Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the December 17th, 2019 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. We're blessed this morning to have Pastor Roger Allen from the St. James Episcopal Church lead us in our invocation. And I believe Pastor Ott, once again, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. For those who are willing and able, please stand.
Let us pray. Almighty and merciful God, Father of all, in this season in which we prepare and wait for the celebration of the incarnation, the coming of God in Christ into the world, we thank you for peace and for security and for good government, which afford us opportunity to enjoy the blessings of life. We humbly ask your continued blessings on this community, on our county, our state, and our nation, and especially upon our chairman and county commissioners and this meeting, that they may serve wisely, charitably, and justly, with steadfast purpose to promote the well-being of all people, and that the peace of God, which was pronounced by an angel at the birth of Christ, may prevail in and through us and throughout the world. In the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen.
Amen.
And early Christmas blessings, sir, to you and to all.
Thank you, Pastor. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so John, I believe you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. Today's hearing will be conducted with the following process and procedure. Each case will be called in numerical order. When the case is called, we would ask that the applicant stand and raise their hand to show that they are in attendance. Then we're going to call to see if there's anyone opposed to the case. We would also ask that the person opposed would stand and raise their hand so they can be counted for the record. Then after the counting of the opposition, both parties will be asked to come forward to be sworn in so that they can present testimony to the Board of Commissioners. The applicant will testify first, and then the opposition, if any, will testify second. It's important to note that each side only gets 10 minutes to state their case of concerns. There's not a process to reserve your time, and there's not a rebuttal process. So please convey all your information to the board within your 10-minute time period. Additionally, if more than one person wishes to speak on a case, you may want to coordinate with each other about what you're going to talk about, because each side only gets 10 minutes, and you don't want to cover the same information twice. Then after the 10-minute presentation period, the board will start to discuss the case at hand. From the discussion, they may ask one or more people to come back to the front for questions or comments. After that, the board will make a decision to either approve, deny, hold, or continue the case at hand. There are a number of cases on today's printed agenda which have been withdrawn and will not be heard today. First case is rezoning case Z53 of 2019, Land Development Associates LLC. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice by staff, so Z53 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z75 of 2019, Florence Haynes. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard today. LUP 23 of 2019, Renika Rogan. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice by staff, so LUP 23 of 2019 will not be heard today. LUP 29 2019, Marilyn Pierce. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice by staff, so LUP 29 of 2019 will not be heard today. And finally, other business number 78, Eastside Baptist Church Incorporated. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice. It will not be heard today. So other business number 78 will not be heard. Additionally, there are a number of cases on today's printed agenda which have been either held or continued by staff of the Planning Commission, and these cases will not be heard today. First case is rezoning case Z45 of 2019, WS Hotels LLC. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the February 5th, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z45 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z56 of 2019, KO Management Incorporated. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the February 5th, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z56 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z62 of 2019, Embry Development Company LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the February 5th, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z62 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z67 of 2019, 20 Holdings LLC. This case was continued by the Planning Commission until the February 5th, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z67 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z69 of 2019, Mike Blackburn. This case was continued by the staff until the February 5th, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. so Z69 of 2019 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z76 of 2019, St. Benedict's Episcopal Day School Incorporated. This case was continued by staff until the February 5th, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing, so Z76 of 2019 will not be heard today. SLEP 13 of 2018, Kennesaw Jewish Center Incorporated. This case was continued by the staff until the February 18th, 2020 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing, so SLEP 13 of 2018 will not be heard today. SLEP 4 of 2019, A1 Auto Course LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the February 5th, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So SLEP 4 of 2019 will not be heard today. And finally, SLEP 17 of 2019, St. Benedict's Episcopal Day School Incorporated. This case was continued by the staff until the February 5th, 2020 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So SLEP 17 of 2019 will not be heard today. I would like to ask the people in today's audience, if you have a cell phone, please turn the volume off on your cell phone. The phones do interfere with the broadcast and the presentations if they ring. Any person wishing to speak before the Board of Commissioners must file a campaign contribution disclosure statement. If within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of a rezoning application, a campaign contribution totaling $250 or more was made to a current member of the Board of Commissioners. Additional information about this requirement is located on the table in the back of the room. I want to remind applicants, opposition, or any interested party that information is due to this board the Wednesday prior to this hearing. Any information submitted after the Wednesday due date may or may not be considered by the board at their discretion. And anyone participating in today's hearing who plans on presenting a video, PowerPoint, or other visual document should have presented those items to our communications team for security screening. And we do need to screen those to make sure they don't have viruses that could affect our internal computer system. These items could also be emailed in advance to presentation@cobbcounty.org. And this screening must be completed before you put your digital media into our system. Mr. Chairman and Board, there is one request for an early head count. Can I get a show of people here who are opposed to rezoning case Z73, Rebecca T. Resch and Warren William Resch III? Please stand up and raise your hands. Let the record show there's 14 people here opposed to rezoning case Z73. Can I also get a show of people here who are in support of rezoning case Z73? Please stand up and raise your hands. 2. Let the record show there's 2 people here in support. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to start the consent agenda.
I'm ready for you to start the consent agenda.
Thank you, sir. Cobb County Board of Commissioners, zoning hearing consent agenda for December 17, 2019. Rezoning case Z43, Embry Development Company, LLC, request a rezoning from R12 and R20 to RM8 for the purpose of a townhome community in land lot 181 of the 17th District. The property is located at the southeast corner or southeast side of Cooper Lake Road, south of Vinings Lake Drive. The Planning Commission recommends deletion to the RA5 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on November 27, 2019, with the following changes. A, small adjustments can be made during plan review, if necessary, to achieve the required 22-foot driveway length back from the sidewalk. B, the unnamed structure between lots 28 and 29 is an amenity. Location is approximate and to be determined at plan review. Number 2, letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Kevin Moore dated November 27, 2019, not otherwise in conflict with the following change. A, item number 8, add sub-item J, streets and sidewalks. Number 3, a community gathering area shall be provided, which shall include a pavilion and/or fire pit area with seating. Number 4, staff comments, recommendations, not otherwise in conflict. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z43? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Chairman, if I may add.
Sure.
I'd like to commend the applicant for your diligent work with the community and the Mapleton Improvement Coalition as well. There was a letter I had received from Mick with respect to looking at a building elevation if it were to be all brick. And so I wanted to add a stipulation just that District Commissioner will have final building architectural approval, and I'll review that with the coalition. Are you okay with that? Okay, I'd like to add that as a stipulation.
Okay. Did clerk get that? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, rezoning case Z57 of 2019, Eric Klein and Rita Klein request a rezoning from R20 to CRC for the purpose of a professional office in land lot 898 of the 16th district. The property is located on the southwest side of Providence Road, east of Roswell Road. Staff recommends deletion of the request to LRO, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on December 10, 2019, with the district commissioner approving the final site plan. Letter from ASAL Properties LLC, Eric and Rita Klein, received December 10th, 2019. Number 3, Fire Department comments and recommendations. Number 4, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. Number 5, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. And number 6, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. The applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z57?
Mr. Chairman, I've got two things to add.
Sure.
First off, I want to thank Dr. and Mrs. Klein for meeting with me, and we worked out all the details that we had questions about last month. First one is, if detention is above ground, that the applicant will add a 6-foot dark-colored vinyl-coated chain link fence with landscaping to surround the detention pond, and that landscaping is subject to district commissioner approval. And then, John, this is for staff. I know we can't do it this January because I believe we've already published the future land use changes, but I've got a list of parcel numbers here, which I'll give to the clerk, that I'd like to have reviewed to be moved out of the CAC and put into a NAC.
Yes, sir.
And it's basically the property that Dr. and Mrs. Klein's property is on, and the zoning that they're going to be getting the LRO is totally appropriate for the NAC.
And I also want to commend both the commissioner and Dr. and Mrs. Klein on working together. Just 1 month, we went from what happened here to we got on consent. So that speaks a lot about the commissioner, Dr. and Mrs. Klein, and all those who work with them. So hats out to all of you. Thank you.
Okay. Rezoning case Z63 of 2019, Bentley Residential Properties LLC, request a rezoning from R20 to LI for the purpose of a commercial landscape company in land lot 1097 of the 16th district. The property is located on the north side of Gresham Road, west of Gresham Park Drive. The Planning Commission recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, a 50-foot buffer on the east side and a 50-foot tree buffer along Gresham Road. Number 2, pavement of the driveway as stipulated in the Department of Transportation comments. Number 3, hours of operation be Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. No work on Saturday or Sunday. Number 4, applicant to work with the neighbor regarding fencing and landscaping. And number 5, staff comments and recommendations. The applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z63? Let the record show there's no one
I
opposed.
just have one question. There's going to be a 5,000 square foot building built at the backside of the lot. And my question is there going to be like a lot of operations going on inside the building because it's going to be right next against the RM12 next door to it? Or that's just for storage?
That's for storage.
Storage, okay. All right, I just want to make sure. I was concerned about the noise.
Yeah, and the ARM 12 next door is undeveloped ARM 12.
Oh, it's undeveloped?
Yes, it's
Oh,
wooded.
okay, all right. Well, if it's ever developed, I'm still concerned about the noise.
Yes, sir.
Right. The applicant was here, right,
Yeah,
John?
he's here.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Rezoning case Z66 of 2019, Smith Douglas Homes, request a rezoning from O&I to RM12 for the purpose of townhomes in land lot 299 of the 16th district. The property is located on the southwest corner of Canton Road and Kensington Drive. The Planning Commission recommends deletion to the RA6 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on November 19, 2019. Number 2, letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Garvis L. Sams Jr. dated November 19, 2019, with the following change. A, item number 7, modified to read rights-of-way, streets, and all related infrastructure within rights-of-way. Number 3, landscape plan and elevations to be submitted during plan review process and approved by the district commissioner. And number 4, landscape plan to have emphasis on landscaping on the south side along Canton Highway. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z66? One person opposed?
I neither oppose or agree. I'm just wondering if I can ask some questions, because I live down the street from where this is located, and didn't know if I could come here and ask any questions.
Excuse me, ma'am. I have some additions to read into the record for consent, and I don't know if that will answer your questions or not, but if I may do that, and then if it's still not satisfied, we'll need to pull it.
Let's do this.
I'll
Let's go ahead and read
consent.
them into the record, all right? And then I'll let her talk, I'll let Commissioner talk to the young lady, all right, while we're reading the other consent and see if there's something that she can answer. If not, then we'll pull it, put it on regular,
And
okay?
maybe we could have Mr. Sands come
Well,
and talk to her.
we could
I
have a-
think Mr. Sams would need to talk to her for her questions, because I got other things on consent that I've got to read into the record.
Well, the other option is we just put it on regular.
Okay, well, let me add to the record, and if that doesn't satisfy, or you still have other questions, we'll pull it and hear it all at once. Okay, first, it's subject to RA6, deletion to RA6, subject to the STIP letters dated November 19th and December 10th. There was a more recent one, December 10th, from Mr. Sams. We're adding a 10% cap on rental, 45% maximum impervious surface per lot, and the final site plan and elevations to be approved by District Commissioner. So do you have a copy of the December 10th letter with the elevations? Okay.
How about if we go ahead and pull this off the agenda, put it on
What I want to do
regular?
is you go start reading, I'm going to give her my copy, and then if she still has some concerns, we'll put it on regular, okay? Before we vote-
Have,
before we vote.
have Mr. Sams discuss with her, if you will. Garvis, please. We can always put it back on consent if everybody's agreeable,
Yes.
but,
Well, we haven't voted on consent, so it doesn't, there's no harm done until we vote on it.
Okay, let's keep going.
yeah, it is on consent.
I know, but if she still has some issues, we're gonna put it on regular. We haven't voted on consent.
Right.
So it hasn't been approved
Okay,
yet.
I got you.
Okay. Rezoning case Z68 of 2019, Car Wash Atlanta LLC. Request rezoning from LRO to NRC for the purpose of a car wash in land lot 471 of the 19th District. The property is located on the south side of Macklin Road, east of Ernest Barrett Parkway, west of Bankstone Drive. The Plan Commission recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on October 8, 2019, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Number 2, submittal of a landscape plan incorporating code compliant buffers to be approved by the district commissioner. Number 3, stormwater management comments and recommendations. Number 4, planning division comments and recommendations. Number 5, water and sewer division comments and recommendations. Number 6, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. And number 7, property to meet the Macklin Road design guidelines with the district commissioner approving the final building architecture. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed? Rezoning case Z68. Let the record show there's no one opposed.
I just want to thank the applicant for your approach to this application, for taking time to meet with me and discuss this, and to do that with the community prior to filing. And I think it's resulted in this being on consent today.
Rezoning case Z70 of 2019, Secure Entity Services Company LLC. Request rezoning from R20 to LI for the purpose of a special contractor, which is a wood flooring company and related office use, in land lot 296 of the 17th District. The property is located on the west side of Atlanta Road, north of Barber Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, site plan dated October 15, 2019. Number 2, contractor use only. Number 3, no automotive-related uses. Number 4, variances as specified in the zoning comments. Number 5, submittal of a parking plan to be submitted by staff and installed prior to issuance of certificate of occupancy. Number 6, Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Number 7, Planning Division comments and recommendations. Number 8, Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. And number 9, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed? Rezoning case Z70. Let the record show there's no one opposed. Rezoning case Z72, Anna Beck LLC, request a rezoning from CS to LI for the purpose of an office warehouse distribution in land lots 699 and 700 of the 18th District. The property is located on the northwest corner of Hartman Road and Lake Correca Road and the southwest side of Lake Correca Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on October 21st, 2019. As the site plan contains property that is not included in the zoning case, if all the parking shown on the site plan on other parcels is not provided, a new site plan will have to be approved by the Board of Commissioners via other business. Number three, the elevation of the building should be substantially similar to the one shown at today's hearing, or the district commissioner to approve the elevation. Number four, the required 50-foot landscape buffer for screening of residential property to be waived until the residential property is developed residentially. Number five, the district commissioner may approve minor modifications, except for those that A, increase the overall square footage of the building, B, cause a reduction in the size of approved buffer, C, cause the relocation of a structure closer to a property line of an adjacent property that is zoned the same or is more restrictive in its designated zoning. Number D, increase the height of a building that is adjacent to a property that is zoned the same or is in more restrictive zoning, or more restrictive in its designated zoning. E, change that is in conflict with an express condition or condition of zoning. F, requires a variance or violates the Cobb County ordinance. And number six, staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z72? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Moving into land use permits on the consent agenda, LUP 25 of 2019, Marlene Graham and Clinton Days request a land use permit renewal for the purpose of a group home for 10 residents in land lot 561 of the 16th district. The property is located on the northeast side of Piedmont Road, west of Shaw Road. The planning commission recommends approval for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. Number one, maximum of 10 residents. And number two, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LEP 25? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Okay, Commissioner Burrow has a question.
Yes, I would just like to say thank you, that you have done a great job with the home there and with the additions and the, I've never had any complaints on you, and you keep the yard immaculate, and I just wanted to say thank you that you've done a great job with that project, so. God bless you.
Okay, LEP 26 of 2019, Hugh Gray requests a land use permit for the purpose of a group home for 6 residents in land lot 621 of the 19th district. The property is located on the southeast side of Elkhart Circle, northeast of Bankstone Drive. The planning commission recommends approval for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on September 3rd, 2019. Number two, maximum of 6 residents. Number three, no parking on the street by residents, guests, or staff. Number four, no signs. And number five, staff comments, recommendations, not otherwise in conflict. Is the applicant present? Is the applicant here for LUP 26, Hugh Gray? Is there anyone here opposed to this case? Mr. Chairman, there's no one opposed and the applicant is not present.
Okay,
Yes, I'm comfortable moving it forward from reviewing the Pacey video.
Okay. LEP 27 of 2019, Costa at Smyrna, requests a land use permit renewal for the purpose of a group home in land lot 50 of the 17th district. The property is located on the north side of Hurt Road, east of Fred Walker Drive. The planning commission recommends approval for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. Maximum of 6 residents. Number two, no parking on the right-of-way. Number three, all stipulations from the previous land use permits also apply. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LEP 27? Let the record show there's no one opposed. LEP 28 of 2019, Shirley Streetman requests a land use permit renewal for the purpose of a beauty shop in land lot 269 of the 17th district. The property is located on the east side of Woodview Drive, south of Church Road. The planning commission recommends approval for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. Number one, no on-street parking. Number two, customers by appointment only. Number three, no employees. And number four, no signs. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to land use permit number 28? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
hey, John,
Yes, sir.
doesn't there have to be at least one employee?
She is the only employee.
Okay,
The
so,
applicant.
no, I mean, no, I just, I guess if you own it, you're not an employee, right? I'm just curious. I'm not, I don't have no problem with the,
It's
Okay,
always
all
been
right.
off-site employees.
all right, no problem.
Thank you, sir.
Just asking. In my special world, I'll stay there.
Thank you. Moving into other business items on today's consent agenda. Other business item number 73 of 2019 is to consider a site plan and stipulation amendment for Paulden Construction Services regarding rezoning application Z23 of 2016 for property located on the west side of Mars Hill Road, south of Mars Hill Church Road, and land lot 120 of the 20th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, proposed site plan contained in the other business packet. Number two, Department of Transportation comments in the other business packet. And number three, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 73? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 74 of 2019 is to consider a stipulation amendment for Michael and Lisa Graham regarding rezoning application Z122 of 2001 for property located on the south side of Galilee Drive and on the north side of I-575 in land lot 210 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, 30-foot landscape buffer is eliminated on this lot. Number two, maximum impervious surface to be 36.5%. And number three, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 74? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business number 75, 2019, is to consider a site plan amendment for J.M. Huber Corporation regarding rezoning application number 423 of 1984 for property located at the southwest intersection of Cumberland Boulevard and Stillhouse Lane in land lots 912 and 949 of the 17th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, proposed site plan contained in the other business packet. Number two, Department of Transportation comments contained in the other business packet. And number three, all previous conditions not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 75? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 76 of 2019 is to consider a stipulation amendment and site plan amendment for Racetrack Petroleum Incorporated regarding rezoning application Z10 of 2011 for property located on the east side of Austell Road, on the north side of Windy Hill Road, and on the west side of Arcos Drive and land lots 14 and 59 of the 17th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, proposed site plan and sign renderings contained in the other business packet. Number two, Department of Transportation comments contained in the other business packet. And number three, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 76? We got one person opposed, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I would just ask that the applicant please speak with the person in opposition. Thank you.
Okay. Other business item number 77 of 2019 is to consider a stipulation amendment for Rose Foods LLC regarding rezoning application Z34 of 2010 for property located at the southeast intersection of Pat Mill Road and Olive Springs Road in land lot 229 of the 17th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, Department of Transportation comments contained in the other business packet. And number two, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. The applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 77? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 79 of 2019 is to consider a stipulation amendment for Walton Communities LLC regarding rezoning application Z27 of 2018 for property located at the northwesterly terminus of Roberts Trail, and on the east side of the I-575 on-ramp in land lot 581 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, letter from Mr. Kevin Moore dated April 27th, 2018. And number two, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 79? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Other business item number 80 of 2019 is to consider a reduction of minimum lot size for livestock from 2 acres to .5566 acres for Cheryl Zuckschwartz for property located on the west side of Big Oaks Drive, south of Old Dallas Road, in land lot 26 of the 19th District. Staff recommends approval for 12 months, subject to the following conditions. 1 goat only. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business, item number 80? The record shows 1 person opposed, so we'll pull that one off too. Other business item number 81 of 2019 is to consider a stipulation amendment for Geneva Roswell LLC regarding rezoning application Z34 of 2001 for property located on the southwesterly side of Alabama Road, north of Sandy Plains Road in land lots 38, 39, and 107 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, allowance of a special exception for a Goodwill Store and Donation Center. Number 2, Department of Transportation comments contained in the other business packet. And number 3, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this matter to remain in effect. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 81? Let the record show there's no one opposed, and that completes the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman of the Board.
Yes, Chairman, I desire to add a matter to other business.
Okay, and I'll let Commissioner Burrow has to go first, and I'll let you go.
Okay.
Commissioner Burrow.
I actually have 2 to add to consent, John. And the first one is Z74. So do you want to see if there's anyone?
Okay, we read it in, and then you can add your conditions.
Yeah.
Okay. Rezoning case Z74, Paul Isbell requests a rezoning from HI to HI with stipulations for the purpose of an auto body shop and paint shop in land lot 221 of the 17th District. The property is located on the west side of Eastside Drive, south of Caruth Drive. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z74? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Okay. So would like to include deletion of property to LI as recommended by Planning Commission. Planning Commission comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. And if current applicant does not close on the property within 6 months, then the property reverts back to the original zoning. And all staff comments and recommendations.
Okay. Second case, Commissioner.
And the next one is other business 70.
Okay, let me call that one. Other business item number 70 of 2019 is to consider a site plan amendment for Dave Stewart Gaskins regarding rezoning application Z70 of 2018 for property located on the north side of Booth Road, the west side of Bills Ferry Road, and the southeasterly side of I-575 in District 16, land lots 284 and 285. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 70? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Okay. And Mr. Sams, if you would come up here while I read these stipulations into the record. And also, the Bells Ferry Civic has agreed to all of this as well as moving it to consent.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
So, I'd first like to add the stip letter dated December 11th from you. Stormwater, fire, DOT comments in the other business packet. The 150-foot right turn lane onto North Booth with the 100-foot taper and full sidewalks on Bells Ferry and North Booth frontage. District Commissioner to approve final site plan, elevations, and landscape plan with review of the site plan and elevations by Bells Ferry Civic Association and County Arborist review of landscape plan. Email from Amy Diaz dated December 13th. Left turn lane not to overlap with school turn lane. Sign wall to be 8 to 10 feet in height with a preference of 10 feet in height, but that will be determined by the engineer and plan review, and district commissioner has final approval. Dedicate right-of-way to dedicate right-of-way to GDOT for any future system improvements. Metal fence with brick columns along Bells Ferry and North Booth Road. Staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict, and all other conditions and steps to remain in effect not in conflict from original zoning.
Yes, ma'am. Garber Sams, on behalf of the applicant, that's correct, and would like to thank the Bells Ferry Civic Association for working with us on that, as well as you and your office.
Right, and I would too. This was a zoning that kind of fell through, and Lennar came through and picked it up and made some improvements and changes, and we appreciate their hard work, and this will be a nice addition at 575 in Bells Ferry.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cupid?
Yes, I would like to add OB 72 to consent. I believe the,
I'll go ahead and read that one.
yeah, please, thank you.
Other business item number 72 of 2019 is to consider a stipulation amendment for Protec Equipment Resource regarding rezoning application Z10 of 2012 for property located at the southeast intersection of Veterans Memorial Highway and Azalea Drive in land lot 165 of the 18th District. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 72? One person opposed to that one.
Okay, thank you.
We'll have to leave it.
Yeah, we'll leave it on
Okay.
regular.
Okay, so we got to go back to, what, Z, that one question from the lady in the audience.
Chairman, if we could, we might have a motion to add on the two consent items.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, thank you. So Commissioner Burrow?
Yes. I make a motion that we add Z74 and OB 70 to consent with the conditions and comments read into the record.
I'll second it. Any other discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
On Z66, the lady just introduced herself to me. She has a few questions, so if I can depart, go outside, Mr. Chairman, discuss those, and I'll be right back.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
Thanks, sir.
So I think what we'll do is we'll still hold Z66, all right? And then we can add it back on to consent after he's talking with the lady. That,
Yeah, so
Does that work?
We're gonna take Z66 off,
Right.
OB 76 and OB 80.
right. Okay. So that, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as revised. Discussion? Call the question? Passes 5-0. Okay, so the first case, I believe, is Z52.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This one also has an other business case. Would it be the board's wish to hear both these cases together?
That's a good idea.
Okay,
Sure,
I'll read them in
absolutely.
both at the same time. Rezoning case Z52 of 2019, WLM Holdings LLC requests a rezoning from O&I to NRC for the purpose of a landscape company in land lot 44 of the 18th District. The property is located on the south side of Veterans Memorial Highway and on the north side of Wallace Road and on the west side of Cooks Road. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z52? One. For the record, show there's one person opposed to the rezoning case. And then other business item number 60 of 2019 is to consider a stipulation and stipend amendment for WLM Holdings LLC regarding rezoning application Z108 of 2016 for property located at the southwest intersection of Cooks Road and Veterans Memorial Highway in land lot 44 in the 18th District. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 60? Let the record show there's one person opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
It's my age. So this is what you'll all sign like when you're my age. Are you kidding me? I'll behave. Okay, Mr. Bally.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning.
Commissioners, for the record, my name is James Bally. I'm a partner at Taylor English Law Firm. I'm here today on behalf of Russell Landscaping on Z52 and OB60. To orient you to the property, it's located on Veterans Memorial Highway. You can see there in front of you the Z52 property. That notated as OB60 is in front of you for parking approval, and then the area to the right is already zoned NRC for Russell Landscaping. Got a more detailed exhibit in front of you there. The NRC is the Russell Landscape property now, and then the O&I Z52 is what is in front of you on the actual rezoning. It's located within a neighborhood activity center on both sides. And I want to kind of give you an idea of some of the businesses that are located within the area. This is directly across the street. You can see there an 8-foot tall fence with 4 strands of barbed wire. We'll get into why that is important later. Some other views, again, the 4 strands of barbed wire across the street. We've got some unscreened dumpsters, some other businesses, and then directly across the street is one that came through zoning in 2017. Now, I wanted you to get that idea of the area across the street, and let me tell you about the history of this property for those of you who may not remember. Before Russell Landscaping, it was an industrial grading business. You can see the pictures. That's what it looked like. We also had barbed wire and the 4 strands there in the front of the building. You can see we also had unscreened dumpsters and fences in state of disrepair, barbed wire. There is some of the views behind the building and to the side. And then an area that we'll also discuss, there was kudzu everywhere in the back. You can see it's taken over the fencing, and that's what kudzu does. It's hard to control and eradicate, and it is destructive in the areas it is at. When this board rezoned the property to NRC for the landscaping business, Mr. Russell went in and invested a considerable amount of money to turn the property around. You can see there it's approximately $250,000, $223,000. That was approved almost 3 years ago today in 2016. And you can see pictures before you what it looks like now, a lot different with landscaping in the front. All of the barbed wire fencing that was there is gone. In front and along Veterans Memorial Highway, there is a new wooden privacy fence that provides quality screening as compared to some of the barbed wire. Again, you can see what it looks like currently, present day, running along the frontage with Veterans Memorial Highway. Now, you may hear some of this, I suspect you will, and I'll admit there were some housekeeping issues since 2016. I will say that there were no complaints from neighbors and no phone calls, but investing $250,000 with no tax breaks and grants sometimes takes a little bit of time, but the issues have all been addressed. We had to demolish the house, that is done, remove the kudzu, that was done, and a replacement of the fence was done, but 3 years later, the kudzu had came back and needed to be addressed. Landscaping, some of the landscaping had not been done. Of course, I didn't represent the person at the time, but that's done or included in this new plan. There was a hardened surface. There was complaints about us parking on gravel. That was a mistake. He had been to meetings at DOT where they were doing that, and he didn't understand that wasn't a hardened surface. That's been corrected, as you'll see. The fence was installed. He was trying to do the right thing. That's what was requested of him in 2016. But all of those have been resolved or are resolved by the letter and the plan you see in front of you today. And there's a picture of present day where they've gone back and removed the kudzu that had come back over the 3 years in the rear of the building and are going to do additional plantings. And there's another view of that. You can see the difference. And again, remembering what it looked like before Mr. Russell came to the property. A little bit of the history of the property. Again, this was an industrial grading site there immediately, and the only adjacent neighbor is a daycare that was established in 2006. It's a great business. We get along good with that landowner. But to show how the process works, when we first filed the plan, this is the plan that was filed with the original application earlier this year. You can obviously didn't have a lot of detail, doesn't have a lot of things that may have otherwise been requested. So what do? We went next door and worked with our neighbor. She expressed a concern about work trucks being parked too close to the fence that separates them. We fixed that, and you'll see no trucks will be parked on that area of C-52. They wanted only employee cars to be parked over there and on gravel, not on gravel, on paved surfaces. We've agreed to do that, and you'll see that. There is buffering and landscaping, even though it's both NRC, no buffers required. She requested certain buffering and landscaping. We've done exactly what she asked, and you'll see there. There has been some discussion at the Planning Commission and with others about the fence and the height of the fence. She's requested that it stay there for security and screening issues. The property sits higher. You can look down into the daycare. That has been done. So what you see now is the actual site plan that's before you. You can see B, what's shown as track B is already zoned and it's not before the board. But A is in fact here only to approve that parking you see. We're agreeing that it'll be on asphalt, the employee parking there. All work trucks will be on A, and a big one, no semi-trucks will be anywhere on the property with the exception of one pine straw truck. This is what we've agreed the sign will look like if installed at the location. We also, after talking with the neighbor, did a significantly increased landscape plan along the front of Veterans Memorial Highway and also along the side. This is what she requested, and you can see what we've agreed to do with the district commissioner being the final arbiter, whether that is done or not. Significant landscaping with the before and after pictures. We are going to ask that we, and you can see there, that's the wood fence. The chain link fence is between there and the daycare. We've agreed to plant. As you can see there, she's agreed to that. She's got a copy of the stipulation letter, and she thinks it looks great. This is what I'm talking about. The daycare supports the proposal set forth in the stipulation letter that you have in front of you, dated December 11th. She's been provided with a landscape plan. She thinks it looks great. She's requested that the fence stay at its current height and location for safety and security issues. If it were moved, people could gain access between those two properties, approach to the daycare, and that's obviously something she doesn't want. So we went with her. She submitted those. Those are in the record. She supports the proposal as stipulated. Again, the traffic and parking concerns have been addressed. Landscaping trucks only on the interior. Employee parking only at the beginning, the pine straw trailers only, semi-truck. I will briefly address DOT comments. When I initially went through plan review, they had asked for 50 feet of donated right-of-way. We've agreed to do that. They originally asked for 50 feet off of Veterans Memorial Highway for a call box. I think some amended steps want 75 feet with the stipulation that no semi-trucks are coming on there. We think it's appropriate to go back to the original comments with the 50 feet. Off the road, again, with us donating the right-of-way. There were some questions about stormwater. Those have been addressed. The two areas you see here, again, there's no structures on the property coming in for rezoning or where stormwater leaves the site. I've been in discussions with Dave Braden. Any concerns about stormwater will be addressed at plan review. He's agreeable to that, and we are certainly going to do whatever he says needs to be done. We have a stipulation letter, again, in front of you that agrees to certain traffic solutions, even on the property that's not before the board, as far as the way the traffic will flow. We've agreed to the landscaping and the buffer requested by the neighbor. We've agreed to the landscape plan with the district commissioner being the final arbiter of any questions about whether that's been done. We've agreed to do the Veteran Memorial Highway fence design guidelines, even though our fence is already up, but we'll come back in and put the 10-foot masonry post. We don't think the brand-new fence needs to be demolished. We do think it needs to stay at 8 feet for the screening, especially in light of the 8 feet tall fence across the road. And we have various other stipulations requested by the property owners that are not required by the code but have been inserted. So your staff has recommended that you approve this application. They noted it is 100% in conformity with the comprehensive plan, will not be a burden on the neighbors. You know that because the neighbors submitted support for it as submitted. And so that leads us to really it's nice when one is able to work on something like it's supposed to do. And I think with this one, you have a solution for a successful rezoning. It complies with the future land use plan. It's consistent with the surrounding zoning. It's identical. It's all NRC. You meet with your neighbors. You address their concerns. And when you can reach an agreement, you agree to voluntary stipulations and make the existing neighbors happy. We've done that here. You obtain a staff recommendation for approval, which we have here, and that's how the process is supposed to work. So I would ask that you follow your trained staff recommendation of approval. Note the support from our adjoining neighbor and approve Z52. I'm available for any questions, and I finished with 5 seconds.
Okay, Mr. Valley, thank you.
Thank you.
Please. Just let us know who you are and
Absolutely. Hi, Sonia Wheatley with the Mableton Improvement Coalition. So we're actually pretty close, and I do want to kind of start off by saying that we're pleased to have the landscaping company move in. There has definitely been improvement. We went through the process 3 years ago, sat down, had a very positive initial conversation, ended up with great stipulations and a plan. It was, a bad product at the time with the property, the way it was used. So there have been improvements, and we do appreciate that. We need to kind of untwist a little bit of what's been presented and clear up because we're close, but the presentation isn't, my opinion, an accurate depiction. To get started, and this is kind of covering some of what was covered, the basis of the major concern here is not that whether we want this business to stay and expand. We do. We appreciate their involvement in our community. They're moving there. But when we met, this was an exception for a specialized contractor. Interestingly, you guys had on consent C63, which was a landscape company that was light industrial. And there were concerns expressed by you as the board about concern with noise, requirements of a 50-foot buffer, adjacency to neighbors, to residential uses. This is the same. The only difference is that, while we support them being there, we've requested that we didn't have it as light industrial. We had it put in as a specialized exception for contractor use. The picture shown across the road of some of the properties that were unattractive, he's right. This property was unattractive. It's borderline now. The goal of having design guidelines, just like Canton Road, just like Veterans, just like Mableton Parkway, is to clean up these older uses. You guys do that every meeting. You see unattractive, inappropriately used properties that lost their grandfathering or haven't met code, and you use this opportunity to improve the community to keep things within the standards. So getting to the particulars, and some of it was covered, but 3 years after approval, 3 years ago, they agreed to demolish the old structure. 2 years later, a year after the deadline, they did it. They agreed to put a new fence on the Cooks and Wallace Road side, and it's still, although it's been standing and propped up, it wasn't what was agreed to. And that was what you saw with the kudzu. The landscaping installed per plan, they finally have, and I drove by this morning, they have finally removed the kudzu during the dormant season. Up until 2 months ago, when this was heard, it was still a mess. The fence is falling down. It's a landscape company. I mean, it's kind of like asking a dog walker to make sure their dog gets exercise. They should be able to install the landscape. Parking on only approved and paved areas, there's still, and I can only guess because there is a fortress of an 8-foot fence around it, so it can be hard to see, 25 to 30 cars currently, or trucks and cars, currently parked on unimproved surfaces. This is a county contractor. And they know the rules, they know the laws. The concern here, and what most of my comments are geared towards, $100,000 of the $200,000 that was spent was done illegally. There was land cleared without a land disturbance permit. There were trees removed without a land disturbance permit. There's been asphalt without a land disturbance permit. We talk about waiting for stormwater on the site plan that you guys were presented with. Let stormwater approve it as part of the permitting plan. What permitting? They've skipped every piece of permitting. What's going to cause them to go before permitting and, make sure that it occurs? We had a loosely drawn in circle in a green area that we could do stormwater. So that's the stormwater management required. It wasn't done. Never had this before. This is new. So it's not the best view of the daycare beside. The daycare is beautiful. Sandy has invested a lot of money, so while you saw the unattractive businesses across the street, please note that there is a beautiful and well-loved daycare center adjacent to it. She invested a lot of money, detention, landscaping, everything that she was supposed to do. This view, and this is the concern, Sandy, and I've spoken to her, she has agreed and has very valid reasons for agreeing to keep the close fence and, to make sure that there isn't trash. And so she is fine with that, and we are also. Our concern is the view from Veterans Memorial. Because again, Veterans Memorial Design Guidelines, and it's not one neighbor to one neighbor, this is a community. So we would like to push this fence back just in front of the building, which would still allow Sandy, the daycare owner, the privacy that she wants and the safety for the children, which is also paramount for us that those children be safeguarded. But it would also improve the view shed as you drive by. Please also note that there's a public school directly across the street. So this is not the industrial area that was presented in the couple of pictures you saw before. Again, just before the last hearing this was heard at, where we heard that people were not parking on gravel, this is from inside the daycare, standing there with children playing around me. It's been used. Again, it's inside an 8-foot fortress. Very few people can see what's going on in there. So on the left, this is what was presented and what Mick agreed to and the reason that they offered support. This was to be the fence, this was to be the landscaping. Just prior to the last time the Planning Commission heard it, this is the fence, and they have cleared that, admittedly, in the dormant season. They've put down some pine straw. We want to make sure it stays that way. And the fence that was promised should be installed. This is about unkept promises. This is Mick has voted to recommend approval with conditions. Our concern and what we're asking for your assistance with is that you find a way to make sure that the promises that have been made years ago and that are made today and the stipulations that you agreed to put on the property, that it's honored. We don't know what the mechanism is for that because we haven't seen it yet. I kind of put the request to hold, quite honestly. That's just based on the frustration. But there needs to be a complete site plan with stormwater that goes through. Again, we don't understand the mechanism that will cause it to go through and be reviewed. They've cleared it, they've graded it, they've graveled it. All they have left to do is pour some asphalt. So how is this going to occur? How do we ensure it? And there also is, if you'll note on the plan, there is no drive in the part. There's a section, we don't want 100% impervious. We understand it will be plant storage, but you're going to be driving through it in order to drop off and pick up plants. So how does that get managed? The landscape installed from 3 years ago, make sure it's all completed. So again, the main part is catching up on the undelivered promises and making sure that we have a complete plan. I think there's one more. So I did this crudely and forgive it, but you will notice from the fencing that you saw, the new parcel, which is the left, and this is 2019, it's been clear cut, gravel, everything, this past year. The fence kind of juts out like 15 feet. The images you were shown of a beautiful new wooden fence, and you all know that you rarely approve wooden fences, nor do they meet the design guidelines. It juts out in a very awkward and kind of unattractive way. We're requesting that the front fence be brought back so that it's level. And if you deem to leave the wooden fence there with that heavy landscaping in front, that will certainly cover it. But it's a very odd look to it, and I do have one image I will show you guys. And that the fence also be moved back adjacent to the front of the daycare. And that's just so that, again, the whole purpose of these design guidelines is to control the image for the public as they drive by, not neighbor to neighbor, community, and for the benefit of Cobb County. The one image, and I took it this morning, that I just want to show you guys quickly because I'm almost out of time. It was morning. So this is the front. I drove by this morning, stopped across the street. That lovely fence that was brand new, it's already, becoming in bad shape on the left. The new part juts out about 15 feet, If the whole thing's pushed back level, so that it's one run, and there's landscaping in front, I think that will cover it. But quite honestly, it's not a very attractive look at the moment. So please note, our big concern is just that the details get executed, and the details get noted in a way that the county staff can execute them regarding stormwater, regarding fencing. We appreciate you guys and request that you help us get this taken care of.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Cupid?
Thank you, Chairman. Ms. Wheatley, if you don't mind, I have a clarifying question. In the request that you had, you said to hold until prior stipulations were.
Quite honestly, that
conditioned
was me this morning trying to get this all straight and just wondering, how do we get this to happen? I mean, is it best to hold it and get them to actually bring forward a complete plan with stormwater, with the fencing moved back and with proper landscaping? It's been 3 years. We haven't even completed the things that were promised 3 years ago. So I'm torn, but it's up to you guys.
Okay, thank you. The applicant can approach and address that, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. As I said on the housekeeping slide, there were some issues that fell through the crack. One of them being the demolition of the house within 90 days. That's been completed.
Okay.
The landscaping, that is a new fence that was put up, and it was put up 3 years ago. Kudzu took it over, as you can see, and it also took over the new plantings that had gone there. The only thing that we can do, they don't go to the rear of that area much. Really, nobody does. And is eradicate it as kudzu grows. They've agreed to do that. One of the things you'll see in my stipulation letter, and I made very clear to the client, is that you're going to have to comply with all of the requirements, whether it included landscaping be replanted back there, whatever was in the 2016. I put it in my stipulation letter. And so I've asked for 90 days to plant because, we're here in December. So I think it makes more sense to plant in March than it would to go out there now. Everything else was addressed. I mean, was there trees cut out there without a land disturbance permit? There was. I'm not sure what the limits of disturbance have to be to get one. But the way that we make sure that there is compliance, the way we make sure that there's stormwater compliance is, and put it on it today, but I'm here to tell you we're going to go through plan review to pave those 2 areas we've agreed to pave. I've already spoken with Dave Braden. When we come through that process, we will be able to go through that checklist and make sure that's addressed. So we will agree to do that.
Dave, do you mind approaching, and I may ask you guys some questions simultaneously? You could stay up there.
Yes, Dave Braden with the Stormwater Management Division. Yeah, this is a little bit unusual because there isn't going to be, there may be a little paving, but not necessarily what we consider grading for a site. And there's no structure on here to get an LDP, a typical LDP either. But if you would stipulate that they bring through for a land disturbance permit for their paving project, then that will give us a mechanism so that we can have. Otherwise, we're just going to be relying on code enforcement to make sure that they do what they're required to do.
So you would like their landscaping plan?
We would like to have their proposed parking plan and the paving that they're going to be due to come through for a land disturbance, a permit through community development, right?
And we're in agreement to that.
Parking plan brought through plan review. Is there a date where plan review occurs? There's a concern that these issues were not addressed in the prior application. So just saying this is going to go through.
I would leave it to you to stipulate if it's 30 days, 60 days, or what.
I think it's the first Monday of every 2 weeks, maybe the first Monday. But certainly we would do it in 60 days. There's no question. The only reason I say that is because we're in the Christmas season. But 60 days, we're more than happy to do that.
I want to be reasonable, yes, with what constraints are there in the request.
Sure.
They're looking at some things outstanding. I'm trying to get a sense of your timeline, but also because they've been waiting for so long, they've asked for this business not to operate until certain things are done. But then there's also landscaping, which makes sense to wait until the spring and not take place here. But I just want to communicate to to you and the business owner, the sense of urgency about getting some of these things done.
He will agree, and if you'll put the 60-day LDP on there, we would agree to that. And then I've already got in the stipulation letter, the landscaping will be installed within 90 days. That includes any landscaping that needs to be replaced from the original application.
And is 90 days going to be sufficient for the landscaping?
I believe
Is
so.
that going to take you sufficiently to the spring to get that planted, so we're not having to replant?
Yeah,
We're
you
not
may
back
have
here
a good
looking at other
point.
pictures of what,
120 days certainly would be, if you wanted to change it to that, that would be.
okay. And I'm not sensing clarity on the fencing plan from my discussion with you, from looking at the property, from seeing Sonia's presentation today. It's very difficult for me to know what should be the firm stipulation for the fencing because it varies too based on where you are on the property.
Right. Well, yeah, what we have is the wooden privacy fence that's wrapped around the front, and it goes for a portion, as you saw in the land use plan, to help soften that edge, that corner you might be able to see from Veterans Memorial Highway.
Yes.
The other stays the way the black vinyl. We've agreed to plant that row along there, which is also going to shield that area you can see from Veterans Memorial.
That's going to be that area in front of
the
the
fence.
business, so the landscaping is going to hide that entire fence.
Right, it's going to go down that corner that you could see from Veterans Memorial will have those plantings there. The adjacent landowner wanted additional plantings inside our fence, and so we've agreed to do that, and that's in there as well.
What I would like to do is just have the landscaping plan, including fencing, approved by the district commissioner with them working with the Mableton Improvement Coalition. There's just too many different variables for me to, again, stipulate per which fence, what goes where. But, and with that stipulation, that there should be understanding of the email submitted by the adjacent property owner, which is Kids Are Kids.
Sure.
Because she has very specific interest in the way the trees are.
And to be clear, we have the Veterans Memorial Highway guidelines allow wooden privacy fence with every 10-foot masonry posts or landscaping. So just to be clear, we've agreed to do both of those. So the fencing along Veterans Memorial, where you see the solid privacy fence now, we're going to install the masonry posts, which are what the guidelines require. I've already got that in my stipulation letter. And then that landscaping will go in front of that. So it's going to be basically doubly in compliance with the guidelines, which is not there now, I understand. Believe me, I have communicated to him the urgency and the requirements of complying with something, especially when I represent him.
Okay. What I'd like to do is include language with that same stipulation to say that fencing may exceed 6 feet where there is agreement, just because we do have guidelines in place that restrict it to 6 feet. But the 8-foot fence that's there does help provide coverage of the work vehicles that are there. But we'll sit down and discuss this, Ms. Wheatley, so we're all in agreement. There was a question about the Knox box.
Right.
If I can have Amy Diaz approach, please.
Amy Diaz, DOT.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, with the Knox box, there's difference of opinion of whether it should be back 50 feet versus 75 feet. Is DOT amenable to us setting it back 50 feet?
Well, and I also want to clarify, in their stipulation, they have it as 50 feet from center line, and it's actually 50 feet from the edge of right-of-way. Because the idea is we are trying to get a vehicle completely off the road when it has to stop there to unlock the gate. And so the 50 feet minimum is 50 feet from the edge of right-of-way.
Okay,
And then the reason we went to 75 is because we heard they are having a semi delivery. And to get a semi completely off the road, we need the 75 feet.
okay,
So we would still recommend the 75, but 50 will cover what we thought was their single unit trucks, the majority of their fleet.
okay,
The other thing that I noticed on their site plan is we have requested either, basically, we would like a deceleration lane, but if they couldn't provide that, then either an improved radius or a taper. On their current site plan, they have a 15-foot radius. Our minimum is 25. For a school bus, we require 35. So an improved radius would be either somewhere between 35 and 50. So we would still like to see that happen. This location is going to have to go through the GDOT permitting process as part of plan review, so that will be handled there as well, but I wanted to make that clear.
okay. I feel like there's so much back and forth with some of these stipulations, and we've been continuing this application for months now, but maybe this is something that we can address here if you can provide the applicant's willingness to increase that turn radius short of not installing the deceleration.
Yes, we would be agreeable doing the 25-foot turn radius instead of the
I'm sorry, the
deceleration.
20,
25, isn't that what you said?
25 is the minimum for any driveway. I would recommend 35 to 50.
how about 35?
35 is it. We can do that, yeah.
Okay. And there's an issue with the one pine straw truck that will be coming in. I believe that could be a semi.
I think that was the issue we don't have now. That DOT was under the impression we were gonna have multiple semi-trucks, and we only have one on site at any time and don't do semi-truck deliveries at all, so.
How will you ensure that that truck is not in the roadway when it's turning into the site if that Knox box is 50 feet versus 75?
We would have somebody out there to make sure the gate was open when they came in, but the way it works is they bring in and drop that trailer in the back with the pine straw in
It
it,
just
so it's
stays back
maybe
there.
once a month or something, and, you know, I don't know. Certainly not frequent.
Okay. How, can you provide your opinion about that, Amy?
The difficulty there is how to stipulate that they do that action, you know, who's gonna monitor if that Knox box is open when the semi gets there. I mean, the decision of it is up to you. To cover all vehicles that we know are coming in that entrance, we would recommend the 75, but we understand their argument as well.
Okay, thank you. There was one more matter, I believe. I think that may address it. The only one issue, again, is the Knox box, the 50-foot versus 75 feet. I'm at a loss here because it is very disruptive on Veterans Memorial because it's so busy when there is truck traffic blocking that roadway.
And the only reason, one of the reasons we said that is because they also wanted us to give them 50 feet of right-of-way. Then if they're gonna measure the 50 feet, or the 75 feet from the right-of-way, we've gotta give them free. Then we just thought it made more sense. It was a little bit more fair to the property owner. With no semi-trucks coming out there, to do 50 feet.
How will will the 75 feet impede your parking area, or is that where the plants are gonna be?
It pushes into the parking area and then would push it back further along that daycare line, and we were trying to keep that as further up to the
Yes,
front as
yes, away
possible.
from, yeah. Yes. And for the safety and concern of the trucks being back there with the daycare, I would recommend 50 feet, but James, I don't know how, I mean, we can stipulate it. If the residents observe this as a concern, this will be a matter for code enforcement.
And I've got it in my stipulation letter now, so if you adopt that, I think that would cover it without you having to change the comment.
Okay, and we'll just add employee to ensure gate is open with pine straw delivery, so that truck does not impede traffic on Veterans
Absolutely.
Memorial. Okay. And then for the clerk's office, I just want to go back to one of the first stipulations that we discussed with Dave Braden is parking plan is to be brought back through the LDP process within 60 days. Do you have those stipulations that we discussed? Okay. Okay, so with that, I move that we approve Z52 and other business item 60 per the stipulations that were shared, including planning commission comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict, and staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict.
You have a second? Questions, comments? Give me a second, Commissioner Gamble did. The only question I have, Commissioner Cupid, is that given the concerns by the Maple Improvement Coalition, would you want to put the stipulation on this all has to be completed by 6
Yes,
months?
that's in the planning commission recommendations.
All right,
Yeah,
okay.
there's some
All
time.
right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Call a question. That's just 5-0.
Thank you.
Okay, let's do one more, and then we'll take a short break. Or do you want to take a break now? Okay, let's take a short break now, okay? Let's come back in about 10 minutes. Okay, move that down. check.
Well, we have quorum.
He's right there. We can wait a second.
OB 17.
Okay, I believe Commissioner Cupid would like to make a small change, add a small amendment to the previous question.
Yes, in the last motion, I did not refer to the applicant's letter dated December 11th, and just want to make sure that that overrides the stipulation letter that is currently referred to in the PC minutes.
So you got that in the, okay?
Thank you.
All right, I believe before we do Z71, we wanted to add 2 more to consent.
3.
3, okay, all right.
Oh,
Do I hear 4?
Okay, great. Make this a short meeting day.
No, it's not.
A short term.
Rezoning case Z66 of 2019, Smith Douglas Homes, request rezoning from O&I to RM12 for the purpose of townhomes in land lot 299 of the 16th district. The property is located on the southwest corner of Canton Road and Kensington Drive. The planning commission recommends deletion to the RA6 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on November 19, 2019. Letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Garvis L. Sams Jr. dated November 19, 2019, with the following change. Item number 7, modify to read rights-of-way, streets, and all related infrastructure within rights-of-way. 3, landscape plan and elevations to be submitted during the plan review process and approved by the district commissioner. And 4, a landscape plan to have emphasis on landscaping on the south side along Canton Road. The applicant is present.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z66? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
So, right, so you want to make a motion to add it to consent?
I will. Do I need to read the stipulations I read initially back in? Okay. So, deletion to RA6. Stip letters dated November 19th and December 10th from Mr. Sams. 10% cap on rental. 45% maximum impervious surface per lot, and final site plan and elevations to be approved by district commissioner.
Okay. Do you have a
And a
second?
motion to move to consent.
Okay, you have a second? All in favor, any other questions? Call the question. Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Next case we have for consent is other business item number 72 of 2019 is to consider a stipulation amendment for ProTech Equipment Resource regarding rezoning application Z10 of 2012 for property located at the southeast intersection of Veterans Memorial Highway and Azalea Drive and land lot 165 of the 18th district. The applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 72? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Okay,
Okay.
Commissioner.
Yes, and I'd like to add a stipulation for the applicant to request the Department of Public Health to ensure that the function of the on-site septic is compliant with DPH guidelines, and for the applicant to be in communication about this review with the property owner located at 6081 Azalea Drive.
Okay, so I'll second that motion. Any other questions? And I'll call the question. And if Commissioner Gamble, if you just raise your hand, for yes, okay, we got 4. So it's passes 5-0.
Thank you. And the last one we're going to add back is OB 76. Is to consider a stipulation amendment, a site plan amendment for Racetrack Petroleum Incorporated regarding rezoning application Z10 of 2011 for property located on the east side of Austell Road, on the north side of Windy Hill Road, and on the west side of Arcos Drive and land lots 14 and 59 of the 17th district. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Proposed site plan and site renderings contained in the other business packet. Department of Transportation comments contained in the other business packet, and all previous stipulations not in conflict to remain in effect. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 76? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Okay, and I know the applicant and I have some stipulations to add. Mr.
Yes,
Harrington.
wanted to, we had a discussion with Cobb DOT and wanted to add one sentence to their recommendation. The sentence has been sent to this clerk and zoning department, so hopefully it's in the record, but I want to read it out loud. This potential reevaluation of this location will be based upon annual traffic growth, crash history of 1 year or more after opening, or future AASHTO publications which are not anticipated within the 2020 calendar year, just further fine-tuning their recommendations, adding that sentence, and Ms. Diaz was,
And the applicant's okay with
Yes.
that being added, and you'll provide the text to the clerk?
yeah, I think it's already been provided to clerk,
Okay, and just adding that the sign height is to be limited to 12 feet?
and we're fine with that.
Yes, and that the district commissioner is to approve final building elevation?
That is correct.
Okay. That's it?
You made the motion?
Yes, I add that we move OB 76 to consent per the added stipulations.
We have a second? Discussion? Call the question? Passes 5-0. My only question now, John, is that do we have to make a motion to pass consent agenda as amended? Since we added these onto it? We've already passed the consent agenda,
No,
right?
because these were on it to begin with. So now
Okay.
we're just approving them as part of the consent.
But didn't we add one?
We did add one, which was Protect.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
So do I think I need to make a motion to
To add OB 72 consent and let that pass, and then we'll vote to.
we've already added it. So now we need to make sure to pass consent agenda as amended, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, so I make a motion that we pass the consent agenda as amended.
second?
All right, any discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0. Okay, now we can do Z71.
Okay. Rezoning case Z71, Trayton Homes LLC, request rezoning from R20 and R15 to RSL for the purpose of non-supportive residential senior living community in land lots 524 and 525 of the 16th district. The property is located on the northwest side of Sandy Plains Road and the west side of Ebenezer Road. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z71? Please stand up. And let the record show there's 5 people here opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Sorry.
Can we start with the overhead? Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Moore, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Good morning. My name is Kevin Moore. I'm here on behalf of the applicant and owner, and the applicant is Trayton Homes in this application for rezoning concerning almost 9.5 acres, 9.45 acres that's located at the intersection of Sandy Plains Road and Ebenezer Road. You see on your screens now where this property is located as it relates to this area along Sandy Plains Road, and you can see it's just north of the Community Activity Center that really is centered around the intersection of Sandy Plains and Piedmont. That Community Activity Center extends along Sandy Plains Road north to the intersection of Post Oak Tritt and Sandy Plains, and then you can see just the end of it here in red on your screens. The property is highlighted in yellow to the south of it. The property that's denoted as R20 is actually the property of Sandy Plains Baptist Church. Across the street from this property, you also see property that's shown as R20. Please note that that is, again, that's a church as well as the post office that is located there. So while this map shows this property zoned as R20, the uses all the way to this property are non-residential uses. So really what this property finds itself at is at the very edge of and along the edge of what is an established long-serving community activity center. What's being proposed for this property is rezoning to RSL, Residential Senior Living, for an age-restricted community by Trayton Homes. Also, you'll see at this intersection of Ebenezer and Sandy Plains, even going beyond this intersection, you'll note on the zoning map, there is yet another activity center of O&I and LRO uses along the frontage of Sandy Plains at that location. What we believe this proposal and development represents is an excellent transition from the community activity center, commercial and non-residential uses, to long-established neighborhood uses, the R15 uses that are to the north and rear of this property, forming the Cary Creek subdivision, which has been there for very many years, as well as going down Ebenezer. And we feel that this then therefore presents that transition, and that's also noted heavily in your professional staff's report, which recommended approval of this application due to the transition nature. I want to turn to the site plan because there have been some updates since this was presented to the Planning Commission, where we also received a recommendation of approval. Turning now to the site plan, that you have a sense of where you are. Again, this is Sandy Plains Road here, the intersection with Ebenezer Road here. What we are proposing is a maximum of 31 residential senior living homes built to those standards. That is a reduction from the 33 homes originally proposed. Of special note, this is the Cary Creek subdivision I was speaking of. We had worked closely in meeting with these adjacent neighbors located here. And as a result of those meetings, this plan has an expanded buffer. Originally, there was a 20-foot landscape buffer along this boundary here, which is what is required under the RSL zoning district. What we have done is double that. It's a total of 40 feet now along this boundary, the first 20 feet of which is an undisturbed buffer, and the next 20 feet of that total of 40 is a landscape buffer, and that's in our stipulation letter as well. That landscape buffer will be planted with a minimum of 6-foot tall evergreen trees as approved by your Cobb County arborist, and in accordance with your Cobb County landscape buffer requirements, which do require 100% visual screening within 2 years of planting. And that's on top of or behind an undisturbed buffer, which will also be implemented here to provide excellent visual screening, both from a natural standpoint and a planted standpoint along this buffer. And we thought that was something that we worked very closely with those neighbors. In addition, we have changed the access at the request of Cobb County Department of Transportation as well as Cobb County. Previously, this plan had full access on Ebenezer Road only. That included provisions in an agreement to provide a left-hand turn lane into the development, and there was no access on Sandy Plains Road. Since the Planning Commission, we have now proposing, as requested by the county, the access on Sandy Plains Road here, which will be a limited or a restricted access, which is proposed to be right in, right out. This is county right-of-way, and so there will actually be a deceleration lane ultimately there as well, in working with Cobb County on that. So this will be a restricted right-in, right-out access on Sandy Plains Road. The access you see now on Ebenezer is actually a one-lane restricted exit right out only. There will be no entry at this exit. This is only a right out only onto Ebenezer. And what that does, from our standpoint, we have added that, is it allows access to the traffic light. This is now a new signal, is a signalized intersection here at Ebenezer and Sandy Plains. For those future residents who might want to travel north on Sandy Plains, what we were trying to eliminate is the need to turn right out, go south on Sandy Plains, do a U-turn to go north. By having a right out only here, we're able to then provide access to the light for those residents who can then turn left and go north and avoid a left turn lane. A left turning U-turn movement further down on Sandy Plains to go north. In addition, this proposed site plan does contain the areas for the community park and amenities here, and again, has been reduced down to a total of 31 homes, which are age restricted. couple of additional points and things I want to raise with you. This, as noted in your staff report, this particular property had been identified on various occasions through the years for significantly more intense types of uses, both from a residential and non-residential standpoint. That's noted in your staff report, and you can see by the positioning of the property why that would be so, since it is at a signalized intersection at the edge of an activity center. And I think that is in part why staff supported this proposal, is due to the history and due to the transition nature of what is being proposed for residential senior living, because certainly traffic being a major concern, what is being proposed is a use, as we know and has been proven, is really has less traffic impact than other types of residential uses, even other single-family residential uses, such as the adjacent R15 zoning. This would have less impact than an R15 development. We've also included within our stipulation letter, which was updated and filed on December 11th, Homes. And he's going to put those up, just a representative sample of the types of homes that are being planned by Trayton Homes, which have been specifically designed by them for their age-restricted developments, which have been very successful thus far, the ones they have here in Cobb County. These are specific age-restricted product. These are just 4 of the 6 that are in the stipulation letter, so that you can see the types and quality of homes that they're proposing for this particular area, which we think will only add to the area in terms of its value and in terms of its aesthetics, and in terms of good development and good zoning at this location. Lastly, I want to again reiterate that this project and this proposed rezoning has been reviewed by the Cobb County zoning and planning staff, and the recommendation of approval was given at 33 homes. At the Planning Commission, we presented this application. The Planning Commission also recommended approval of this rezoning. Lastly, we believe that the rezoning as proposed and as amended, these changes have been sent to the Planning Commission, where we took additional comments and identified issues and incorporated those into a revised and updated plan, which includes more doubling the buffer along the northern side, as well as revising the access as requested by the county. We think that the applicant has gone above and beyond in terms of responding to identified issues and concerns, and we therefore present this application for your consideration and respectfully request your approval, subject to our December 11th stipulation letter and the revised site plan that you see now. Thank you.
Okay, those in opposition, you have 10 minutes.
Good morning, Board of Commissioners. I'm Charles Sprayberry with the Cobb County School District. The Cobb County Board of Education has concerns about this development. Senior residential developments generally have a negative impact on tax revenue for the Cobb County School District. Unlike standard residential or commercial developments where property taxes are non-exempt, we therefore would like to express our concern to the Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners and ask that you take our concerns under consideration as you review this zoning application. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Edward England. I'm a deacon of Sandy Plains Baptist Church. And for the last 5 years, I have been heavily involved for the church in the road construction project that has taken place in front of our church. And we have been pleased with the activities so far that have resulted in the median being placed in the roadway. We did have one major concern, and that was the movement of a driveway for our church so that it now is almost directly across from the post office. on Sandy Plains. We've been very concerned that that situation, that new driveway may present a problem for our members to exit from that driveway. But nevertheless, the church has been very cooperative in meeting the request of Cobb County DOT. And the driveway now is in existence. We're not opposed to the development of this subdivision that Mr. Wiggins has applied for. We are opposed to the current revision that has been made since the Planning Commission meeting of 2 weeks ago. At that time, we understood that the entrance and exit for the subdivision would all be on Ebenezer Road, along with a left turn lane. But now with the access and exit on Sandy Plains Road, we see that as another factor to be considered by our members who are exiting from our driveway. And that is a major concern. That is the point that we do not like at this point. It has been said that the previous plan was dangerous. My view as a long-term member of Sandy Plains and as a current involvement with the recent road work, Sandy Plains Road is much more dangerous than Ebenezer. And I would much prefer that the entrance and exit to the subdivision be on Ebenezer rather than Sandy Plains, because this requires anyone who wishes to enter the subdivision who is coming from the south, they have to make a U-turn at Ebenezer. We've already required, due to the road construction, that U-turns be made by people exiting the post office. So that is a concern to some extent, but it's not the major thing. But anyway, the point I wanted to make is that we approved the previous plan when we left the Planning Commission, and we were surprised to see that this new plan had an entrance and exit on Sandy Plains Road. Thank you.
Cornelia, could you put on the map where the church is? I think I see. I just want to make sure. Okay, all right.
Mr. Chairman and fellow commissioners here on the board, my name is Walton Stevens. I am also a member of Sandy Plains Baptist Church, and I'm here as part of the leadership team of the church. Back when this came before the Planning Commission, I initially had raised my hand and asked to speak in opposition to the proposal that was being brought forth. It had nothing to do with the driveway. It had everything to do with our request to have some changes made as far as a buffer on our side. And let me show you. Can you hear me? Okay. Sure. The church itself is on this location over here. Mr. Wiggins and I spoke before the commissioners' meeting, or shortly after it got started anyway, and he offered a proposal to put a buffer up there. And I changed my opposition at that particular point in time to agree with it. At that time, when the proposal was made, as Mr. England said before that, there was only one entrance and exit, and that was off Ebenezer. When I received the letter dated December the 11th, I noted that it had been, that what we had asked for in there as far as a buffer on us was still there. And we're thankful that it had remained in there, but we're opposed to this turning lane, entrance and exit on Sandy Plains. And our concern is, well, let me first say that our church is not used just on Sunday. We have a preschool that is there, and we have preschool traffic that comes in that entranceway, the new one that the DOT has provided for us. They make a loop, drop the children, and they come right back out that same exit or entrance on the church. To turn, when they come out and to turn north on Sandy Plains Road, they must cross 2 lanes of traffic to go and through the cut in the median there, right there in front of the post office, and make a left turn on Sandy Plains to leave. To go out southbound, all they do is go up and make a right turn and go out. It currently has a rise in the road. It was built that way. DOT did a wonderful job with this, but there's a rise in the road between Ebenezer and us where if you're sitting there in your car at that exit of the church, the only thing you can see is the light at Ebenezer. You can't see cars coming up over that rise. Now, last Saturday, Mr. England and I went over and we stood there at that corner and we watched people coming out of the post office that made a U-turn on Sandy Plains Road and headed south. At the same time, cars that were making a right turn from exiting, coming out through Ebenezer, where those two come together. There is no way people can turn at that post office and make a U-turn and stay in the inside lane. They have to sweep to get on the outside lane, where it's exactly where this exit is coming out. We stood there and I watched the people, and as they're coming out of Ebenezer, they're looking down Sandy Plains Road. They're not looking across the street at people making a U-turn. In fact, we stood right there and we almost saw an accident for that very same reason. The people on Ebenezer, when they're exiting, are not looking for people to be making a U-turn. What does that mean? That means that the only entrance that is now proposed for this particular development is the one on Sandy Plains Road. So anybody that is headed northbound, and let me again show you on the map. If anyone is going northbound and wants to get into this subdivision here where their home is, they have to go up and make a U-turn. Not cross 1 lane, cross 2 lanes, and then they have to cross the inside lane and come down the outside lane and then get over into a decel lane to make a turn. They're crossing 2, 3 lanes of traffic while you have people coming up Ebenezer looking northbound to pull out and to swing in, and they're coming right in their path. I know DOT said that's a good alternative. I'm telling you, it's not. The concern I have for those people who are going to be living there and are going to be trying to go home, and their only way home is right here, and they're going northbound and they make a loop and they're having to contend with traffic here and here in order to get over 2 lanes to go home. Now, Mr. Wiggins said that the DOT said they were making changes here so that people didn't have to go down to Post Oak Tritt and make a U-turn to go northbound. They're exchanging that for a U-turn right there. But down at down at Post Oak Tritt, which is the next light down, you don't have post office traffic. You've got post office traffic that's going over trying to do exactly the same thing. We think this is a bad alternative to what was originally proposed. And I ask you to carefully consider not doing it this way. I fear for those people. I fear for the children that come through our preschool, that come out that very exit, and they're having to not only contend with all of that traffic, but then you've also got an exit ramp coming out of that development.
Sir,
and they're dumping all of that right there.
Your time's expired.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Burrow.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you to the church too for your patience with the median and construction going on. It is going to be completed by the end of this month. Fingers crossed. No, seriously. They're almost done and they have until the end of December this year. So it'll be well worth the wait, but I appreciate your patience and everybody that travels that area. If I could have Amy Diaz come up. Originally, Amy, the recommendation was for right-in, right-out only on Sandy Plains
Correct.
for this project when it first came in. And I know Sandy Plains is an arterial road. Ebenezer is a major collector. The traffic counts are higher, of course, on Sandy Plains. And with the construction going on, once that is completed, that will allow for a U-turn at Post Oak Tritt. There is a median break at the post office and the one church entrance, an exit for full access on Sandy Plains. But it's gonna be hard. It would be hard to make a U-turn there, I would think. They could turn left into the post office and then come out the other, closer to the light. But when Planning Commission heard this 2 weeks ago, they had the revised site plan with the left turn lane on Ebenezer, which there was opposition that spoke to that as well. Then I met with the attorney for the applicant, and my concern was safety on Ebenezer with the Cary Creek subdivision and then the school, Addison Elementary right there, with bus traffic and everything else. So the applicant agreed to make it a right out only onto Ebenezer, so they wouldn't have a left turn lane or full access going west on Ebenezer. So I'd like you to speak to the safety issues as opposed to the two site plans.
Certainly. So when we got the original site plan, it had the one access on Ebenezer, which was a full movement access. That access location, because of their limited frontage, is closer than our recommendation for a full movement access to a signalized intersection. It is closer than 250 feet tangent distance to that intersection. So our recommendation was to, if possible, move it to Sandy Plains, because Sandy Plains does have the potential for U-turns, especially at the signalized intersections. They can turn when the left turn has precedence. So if they stayed on Ebenezer, however, normally we would require that to be a right in, right out because it's too close. But because Ebenezer is a 2-lane road with the school up the road, we looked at that and basically compromised and said if we can't get the access on Sandy Plains Road, then that a left turn lane will at least get those vehicles out of the way, since it's a low volume development with an RSL, that it would not be ideal, but it would be something that we could live with. Safety-wise, I mean, the U-turns are allowed at both of those locations. They have not had any kind of safety flag for Sandy Plains Road at that location. We would be watching all of these places for whether or not there was a safety impact in the future.
Yeah. Well, to me, the distance from Sandy Plains and Ebenezer, when you turn onto Ebenezer, I mean, they're gonna have to jump right in that left turn lane, and it could stack up. I know this is RSL, so there's typically less traffic concerns, but with Sandy Plains being a major arterial road and Ebenezer being a major collector, the speed limit on Sandy Plains is 45, Ebenezer's 35, and the right-of-way requirements are 100 feet on Sandy Plains and 80 feet on Ebenezer. Do we have
Correct.
that?
I believe so. I don't have it in front of me, but I don't believe we asked for additional right-of-way.
Okay. Well,
The left turn lanes would actually take place in DOT-owned right-of-way on the east side of the intersection because of the way that the intersection is designed, if that was put on to Ebenezer Road.
Okay, I'm looking at your comments. But I think this was the original with more, because they did cut down the lots, the number of lots. And I know they added an increased buffer on the Cary Creek side as well, since Planning Commission. So,
Are you telling me you can make a U-turn from Sandy Plains at Ebenezer going north?
Correct.
You're kidding me.
yes,
No, if,
that's signal.
when you have two lanes like that, we found that you can make that U-turn. What we will work with them on is if there is any concern with that, is we can put basically an eyebrow at the corner where it gives them a little more space to turn.
All right.
Because all that DOT, all that right away does belong to DOT.
So safety-wise, what do you recommend?
We would recommend that the access be placed onto Sandy Plains because of the proximity of that intersection on Ebenezer. The left turn lane makes it kind of a compromise because at least we're trying to get those people out of the way, but it is too close to the signal. If there is a queue, it would actually back into the signal, which is not an optimal situation at all.
Right, and that's my concern too. What about the right turn only on Ebenezer? Is that recommended?
That's fine either way. We would not recommend that they have a through movement coming in off of Ebenezer
No.
to try to basically bypass that light, but the exit is fine.
So they wouldn't be able to turn right into off of Ebenezer if they're coming from the school or,
Correct. They'd have to go around the corner and come in on Sandy Plains.
okay. And then, I know that this is RSL. They are, let's see. There is gonna be a fence along the church side, correct, Kevin? Yes, okay. And then you added you increased the buffer, to the north where Cary Creek borders to 40 feet with a 20-foot landscape buffer inside the 40-foot buffer?
That's correct. We increased it from 20 feet to 40 feet. So we doubled it. First 20 feet's undisturbed, and then it's a landscape buffer behind that.
Okay. And you're at 31 lots, which is 3.2 units per acre,
That's correct.
and it is RSL. At Planning Commission, they recommended the 15 feet between homes, but with the revised site plan, we're still at 10 feet.
We are. These age-restricted homes are built, designed, the layout of such is that 10 feet minimum of 10 feet between structures is just how they fit together, and how that is accomplished, and that's how it's done in most nearly all of the RSL communities is 10 feet. There are some that are 15, but very many of them across the county are at that, and that's how that product is really designed and built, particularly with this property and particularly now with the access and how we're arranging for that, given the creek to the rear of this property, which we're having to come in off of, the fact that the property is a lot longer than it is wide. We feel that very minor variance that's actually repeated over and over again across the county is justified in this instance.
Okay. Well, I'm just concerned about the safety with the not having access on Sandy Plains and that short turn on Ebenezer. And if that's what DOT is recommending, I think we need to consider that. I would welcome any comments from the board as well.
Kevin, hold on. I know this has private streets. Is it going to be gated?
It's not going to be gated, no.
Okay, then I have a question for Amy based on that. Sorry to make you come back up, but you kind
It's
of
all right. I thought
snuck
you all were done.
away.
Thought you were done with me. Amy
Yeah,
Diaz,
well,
DOT.
You mentioned that right turns off of Ebenezer into this are not going to be allowed. How are you going to prevent that?
Basically, I have the design of the roadway angle it toward the intersection so that you can't comfortably make that turn.
But you would still be able to make it. Because here's what I see. I see Sandy Plains and Ebenezer, which is probably a very busy intersection. And I see a perfect cut through for somebody coming down Ebenezer from a school, a parent who's running late, who doesn't want to be late for work. They're going to turn right into this neighborhood. They're going to cut through this neighborhood and come out on Ebenezer to avoid the light. So I have serious concerns about having any access to Sandy Plains. I mean, I hear what you're saying. No, to Sandy Plains. Because what I see, I hear the church's concerns, and I, like the chairman, I don't know how we allow U-turns there. And the very fact that you tell me we have to have the elbow or whatever you called it tells me that it's not a place for U-turns. And then the fact that if you're going to have access on Ebenezer at all, which my understanding is the developer's fine with the access being on Ebenezer. I have a problem with the access being on Sandy Plains, and I think that it's a perfect setup for a cut through this neighborhood for cars coming on Ebenezer to get to Sandy Plains. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but you can just see the setup, especially since it's not gated.
Well, our recommendation was basically to have full access on one or the other. The developer requested the access to be exit only, and because we believe it can be angled enough that it is hard to make that turn. Basically, you can angle it where it's about a 30-degree turn on one side and a 150-degree turn on the other. It's physically possible, but it's very, very difficult.
And they're going to
If
be replacing the grass on that corner all the time.
That's very possible. If the board does not like that cut through, we would recommend that the access only be on Sandy Plains Road. And I'm not certain whether it's called an eyebrow, but the extra pavement is required at that intersection or not. The details of laying all that out is something that we get to in plan review. It's just something that I know we could put in if it is required.
Because that's all right away
Correct.
that county right away that we own.
Currently, U-turns are not prohibited at that location. They are allowed.
Right. And with the median going in, that's not going to be taken out,
Correct.
the U-turn access, I mean. And it is signalized. I just,
I remember a case here a couple months ago where, similar situation, we had people coming out of a development, and they had to go up to an intersection and make an octaflugeron to come back around and go to a shopping center across the street.
They have an official DOT term for that.
Oh, do they now? What is it?
What was the one in West Cobb? You guys had something you wanted to put in it?
The R-cut?
Michigan
The
left.
what?
The R-cut?
Yeah, the R-cut.
Oh, there you go. He's just asking for trouble by making people do a U-turn. And I agree with Commissioner Ott. I don't care, it may be a difficult, but we know drivers. They will do the difficult to get in there, just to get out of there. Not to mention people cut through, but just people who want to get into that development rather than go all the way down here. So I'm just having real problems with this.
Something we could suggest, and I haven't brought this up because this hadn't been a concern until now, is there could be a gate that's activated by people leaving the development so that people can't get in, but they activate the gate on the way out.
Oh, then they're all going to get stuck in there.
well, you've got a curb here, Bob.
Yeah.
You got a curb here that they can't turn right in. They can only go out.
Curb is not going to stop them from going in there.
I agree with the Commissioner.
Then they'll ruin their car jumping the curb. That's the risk they take. I don't know.
All you have to do is look at Indian Hills Parkway off of Lower Roswell Road. How many times have they asked, and we finally had to put big rocks to keep people from making the turn and going on the grass? I mean, if there's people that are running late are not going to worry about going up on the curb if they know that it's an easy access to get onto Sandy Plains.
Well, I think it's time to make a motion.
So Are you, would you recommend no right out on Ebenezer, no access on Ebenezer? And only a right in, right out only on Sandy Plain?
If I'm having to choose between the two locations, then yes. We were willing to work with them on the exit only, but I hear the board's concern, and if the board doesn't wish there to be that potential, then I would recommend they have just the access on Sandy Plains.
Okay. Did you want to say anything, Kevin?
Just the genesis or the idea behind the right out access, right out exit only onto Ebenezer was if your only access is a right in, right out on Sandy Plains, by having the right out on Ebenezer only to get to the light, it eliminates the need to have a U-turn movement at Post Oak Trip and Sandy Plains intersection. Because if you want to go north on Sandy Plains, you exit out of here, you're gonna have to now do you got a U-turn to get in it and you got a U-turn to get out of it. And we were just trying to eliminate U-turns to begin with, which is why we proposed access on Ebenezer only, which means there's no U-turns. But, you know, as you've stated, Commissioner, and as requested by DOT, there was a different opinions on that, and so we redesigned it to have that access. But that's where it came from. But if we're gonna eliminate the right out only on the Ebenezer, I mean, we'd be willing to do a gate if that's what it would take, you know, an arm gate that would prohibit, you know, people turning in to use it. We can do that. But you know, we're just trying to eliminate as many U-turns as we can.
Okay.
Kind of puts us in a difficult positioning
Well,
from a request standpoint.
so what I'm hearing over here is no access on Sandy Plains and full access on Ebenezer from these two. You said you agreed with Commissioner Ott.
About the issue on Ebenezer that, you know, look, I just think this is development. We're trying to make some traffic pattern fit a development. It's not even natural. You know, I just don't see how this fits
I'm
into.
trying to make it safe for
It's already zoned
full, for entering and
R20,
exiting.
which is 18 houses, all right? Now we're trying to go to 31. And with a traffic pattern, it doesn't fit. There's no way you're gonna be able to get in and out of there without ultimately causing some kind of a problem somewhere down the road here. And you go a night where it's raining and it's dark, you're asking people to do things that are cuts, whatever we're calling them, you're just asking for trouble. I'm sorry, it just doesn't fit.
So you're saying what? I'm sorry. 2 months. Do you want to hold it?
If that's the commission's desire, we will take a look at this and see if we can't reach
Well,
a
I
better
don't think we have
compromise.
a motion or a second and a consensus here.
I mean, we're happy to take a look at it, just understanding that as this property is zoned R20 or I mean, if you're at 18 or 20 homes, it produces more traffic than what we're proposing, and more often,
I understand, because of
more
RSL.
trips, so.
Okay,
But
well,
from a,
I'm gonna make a motion that we hold it to the
if
February.
we need to work for it, we'll
meeting.
continue to work for it.
Okay, so you're making a motion to hold to February?
Yep.
Do we have a second? Any discussion? Call the question. Passes 5-0. Okay, Z73.
Rezoning case Z73, Rebecca T. Resch and Warren William Resch III request rezoning from R80 to R40 for the purpose of a single-family subdivision, maximum of 4 lots, in land lot 166 of the 19th district. The property is located on the west side of Castile Road, north side of Luther Ward Road. Earlier, there was 9 people opposed, 1 more came in, so there's 10, and there's 1 person in support. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in. And let me correct those numbers. That was the planning commission numbers. There's 14 in opposition at the beginning of the meeting. 1 more came in, so there's 15, and there's 2 people in support. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Okay, Mr. Moore, you have the floor again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. And to start with, just want to remind everybody, this is the December zoning meeting at Christmas time, so we're all supposed to be a lot more joyous and happy about doing this. Traditionally, that's how it's worked. You see, you have your Grinch on? That's good. That notwithstanding, I do want to present this zoning application on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Resch, the property owners of this property, that is 6.67 acres. I was recently retained to represent this case and want to present it to you and in essence, present it to you as presented in the somewhat in the letter that Mr. Lindsey Tippins, the representative for Mr. and Ms. Resch, had submitted to the county zoning office last Wednesday, and want to present the facts and circumstances surrounding the changes that he has made and the Resches have made in this plan since its presentation to the Cobb County Planning Commission. This property is currently zoned R80. The request is to rezone the property to R40. The property is located at the intersection of Castile and Luther Ward Roads, and you can see it on your screen now. And we're going to turn to the site plan now, if we could, and kind of want to really hit on what has changed since the Planning Commission and give you some real insight. Turning again to the site plan, here's Castile Road and Luther Ward Road, and this is the 6.67 acres. The original application to the R40 classification proposed a total of 4 lots on this 6.67 acres. There is an existing home that will remain. The change that has now been made per this revised site plan is to reduce that from 4 homes to 3 homes, and the lots are here. One lot here, which is the smallest lot, is 1 acre or 43,560 square feet. So it exceeds the minimum of 40,000 square feet for R40. The second lot is the existing home site and driveway, which is 3.67 acres. And then you have a 2-acre, full 2-acre lot to the rear here that fronts on Luther Ward Road, that being also just almost 87,000 square feet as 2 acres here. Again, this is reducing it to 3 homes, and the significance of that is that this property is zoned R80 currently, which would permit up to 3 homes. So what we're seeking here is a net increase of 0 in terms of the underlying existing zoning of R80. This rezoning proposal does not seek to build more homes on the 6.67 acres than are allowed under the current zoning. It is proposed for rezoning because one lot, this one here, that's 43,560 square feet or 1 acre, is positioned in such a way that if you were to make this lot larger, to make it an 80,000 square foot lot, what that lot does then is block off the existing home, which is in good condition, to be sold and kept and maintained, and well as put this lot basically in the front door of the existing home, thereby basically ruining the aesthetics and true viability of how this home should look, simply to provide more square footage. What Mr. Tippins has and the property owners have agreed to, though, is they can shift this line ever so slightly over and increase this lot to a minimum of 50,000 square feet, which achieves just a little bit more in terms of the size of that lot. But a couple of important points I again want to reiterate. This is proposed for a total of 3 homes on 6.67 acres, and we don't see this a lot. So sometimes that math can get backwards. It does for me. But what this does is provide for an average lot size of 2.2 acres for this proposed 3 homes. Again, it's the same number of homes, 3, that can be achieved under the existing zoning of R80. Again, from a density standpoint, if you just want to speak in terms of units per acre, this is 0.45 units per acre, which again is extremely low density in this situation and in this area and in Cobb County. As a result of this revised proposal of a total of 3 homes, this proposal is consistent with the R80 standards in terms of density, as well as it's very much consistent with the future land use plan. The future land use plan identifies this property as within a VLDR, very low density residential, And certainly at 0.45 units per acre, it is wholly consistent with the future land use plan of very low density residential. In terms of the area itself, this intersection at Luther Ward and Castile Road is better known as where Loving Good Middle School is located. On the opposite side of Luther Ward Road is Loving Good Middle School, which, as you know, is adjacent to Hillgrove High School. And then just north of this property on Castile Road is Still Elementary. So 3 schools within either across the street or within very, very close proximity of this property. In addition, the surrounding area is really dominated by some of your larger lot residential districts, R30, R40, and R80. There's also some R20 as you go down Luther Ward Road, but there's a particular location in this area, the 5 Family Farms, that has been created on R80 property adjacent to this property. That particular development, if you call it that particular property and how that those families and homeowners have used that, they have voluntarily imposed restrictions higher than the zoning ordinance permits or allows, and they have voluntarily imposed those, which is good for them. And I'm happy that they've done that and that they did that many years ago. But they voluntarily imposed those restrictions and higher restrictions on their property. It's our position that those voluntary restrictions that they put on should not extend to their neighboring property who's not a part of that. What's being proposed here is entirely consistent with the extremely rural nature of this stretch of Castile Road. We are proposing an average lot size of over 2 acres, and we're only proposing 3 homes, which this property can be developed for today without even coming in front of you. And as a result, it's entirely consistent with actually what I think the ultimate goal. They can speak for themselves, but the ultimate goal was to assure that this area within and around Castile Road and this stretch held a very rural feel and held a very feel of very large lots, and that's what this continues to do with the proposal made by this applicant. Moreover, I think it's also important to note that this particular property has never had a protective covenant which limited development or prohibited development under the existing zoning or proposed rezoning. This property was not part of that, did not voluntarily restrict the current property or future property owner from that, and that's never occurred for this property. Again, I think it needs to be recognized that the applicant and owner did listen at the Planning Commission, which recommended a total of 3 homes, and that's been done here. They have reduced it to a total of 3 from 4, as well as agreed to increase the one lot that is less than 80,000 square feet, that is the reason for the rezoning, increase it from a 1 acre lot or 43,560 square feet, increase that to a minimum 50,000 square foot lot. Again, as a means of recognizing what the Planning Commission had stated in its recommendation, as a means of recognizing what those in opposition and the neighbors had said as well. And I believe that went a long way in terms of what this proposal really is. Lastly, and also importantly, Cobb County staff had recommended approval under the prior R40 with 4 homes. And so certainly their recommendation would be even stronger now with this reduced proposal. With that, we appreciate your consideration here today. The applicant and owner's representatives are here, can answer any questions that I might not be able to, and we respectfully request your approval of this rezoning request for a maximum of 3 homes per the revised site plan that you see on your screen, which was submitted last week. Thank you.
Anybody else in support? We have a minute left. If not, those in opposition.
Commissioners, my name is Diane Quammen, and I live directly across the street from the subject property on 10 acres, and I've lived there since 1975. I'm representing the people who are opposing this subdivision. It's not a subdivision, this rezoning. It seems like a simple case, just as Mr. Moore said. R80 to R40, same number of houses, no big deal. But we know that zoning sets a precedent, and this precedent should not be set on this property. I'm opposed to this. We're all opposed to this for several reasons. The zoning history of the property and the neighborhood, which included this piece. The owner's lack of apparent good faith attempt to sell the property at the current zoning. The speculative nature of the zoning. and, as I said, the dangerous precedent that any rezoning sets. First, the history. The subject property and the entire surrounding community, all of land lots 166 and 167, all 80 acres, has a history of community participation in zoning cases that dates back over 20 years on this same two land lots. We want you to be aware of this history and of our long-term investment in the case before you today. So in 1998, in case Z91, a developer wanted to rezone 24 acres in the middle of land lot 166 for 44 houses. The rest of the neighborhood and all of land lot 167 got together, many of us meeting for the first time, and opposed it, fought it really hard, and we lost. But we didn't give up. We were so opposed to this rezoning for greater density that we banded together, paid the developer $90,000 to go away, and bought the property from him for $625,000. Then we spent months and months surveying the land, dividing it into lots of at least 2 acres, making covenants, creating an HOA, marketing it at Five Families Farm. Granted, Mr. Tippin's property is not part of Five Families Farm. The property immediately adjacent to it is. But as we were doing this work, we realized that Five Families Farm was only a small part of the neighborhood, and we wanted to protect it all. So in 1999, in case C41, we downzoned not only all of land law 166 and 167, but also 150 additional adjacent acres to R80 to better reflect the actual nature of the land. We wanted to have that zoning sign that would warn us when a developer or a neighbor wanted to come in and change the character of our neighborhood. No one had ever heard of neighbors collectively requesting a density decrease. Not the Planning Commission, not the Board of Commissioners, not the planners, not the newspapers. Thankfully, our request was upheld and we preserved our community. To this day, those 230 acres of land are still R80. But in Z6, 2005, one of the original neighbors who fought with us for the downzoning decided to move. And he decided that he was moving, so he didn't care about the neighborhood anymore. Why not make more money and put 11 houses in there? He'd be gone, why should he care? Because he hadn't made a good faith effort to sell his property at R80, among other reasons, the board denied his case and forced him to stick with the R80. And he quickly sold his property to the Resch family, whom we are talking about today, and their property. That brings us to the current situation. The Resch family has lived there since around 10 years. They lived there around 10 years until the family finally outgrew the home and they moved. And that was about 3 years ago. For the past 3 years, the place has been seemingly deserted. No mowing except once a year, no upkeep on the house, no picking up roadside trash, no fallen branches allowed to stay on the front fence. I personally retrieve the AJC from the driveway every morning so passersby won't notice that the property is essentially abandoned. In January of this year, finally, a for sale sign appeared. But that sign has been the only evidence that the property is being sold. There's no real estate agent, there's no advertising, either online or in the paper, there's no cleanup of the yard, nothing. In fact, online searches continue to list the property as not for sale. How can you be selling a property and it says not for sale? When asked the price, Mr. Tippins quoted a figure $200,000 over the appraised value of similar property immediately next door and immediately across the street. So now we come to today in Z73. Mr. Tippins told me he can't sell the property as is. That, despite the fact that he's already sold the 2 acres in the back as one piece. There's no need to change the zoning to do that. There's actually no need to change the zoning in the front either. He could extend the property backwards and have the required R80 zoning. Which brings me to what we believe could be one of the most important points about this rezoning. It's entirely speculative. Even if the land is rezoned, there's no buyer waiting in the wings to snatch it up. Neither the current house nor the proposed new lot. In fact, this rezoning is so speculative that Mr. Tippins told me it's only just in case he can't sell the house as is with the 4+ acres. He wants a fallback position so he doesn't have to go back to the county for rezoning. In addition, he told me that even if he gets the rezoning, he intends to try to sell the property as is. Is this confusing to you as it is to me? And the final point is what I started with, the dominoes effect. We've all lived in Cobb long enough to understand the dominoes effect in zoning. My land's R80, yours is now R40, I want to move, so I'm going to rezone mine to R30. Planning staff says, oh, across the street is only R40, so no big step to R30. Everyone agrees, and there goes the whole land lot. R80 to R40 can be considered no big deal. But as you know, it sets the precedent that makes the next zoning and the next that much easier. In conclusion, I believe this case goes to the very heart of zoning law. Whose rights are more important? Those of the one who's already left the neighborhood, or those of all of the other ones who are staying? Likewise, whose rights are more important? Those of the one who owns 6+ acres, or the rest of us who own the other 73 on those land lots? We hope you agree that the intent of zoning is to protect the residents living within the neighborhood, not to maximize the profit of one individual who has already left. We ask that you deny Z73.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Paul Paulson. I'm a 51-year Cobb County resident. Immediately after the Z73 Planning Commission hearing 2 weeks ago, Mr. Tippins approached me with a challenge. Quote, so are you ready to sign a 99-year R80 covenant on your land? My wife and I own the 7.66 acres directly to the north of his property. Borders him about 600 feet. He made me think it was time to put up or shut up. My wife and I have executed such a declaration, and as of yesterday, it has been signed, sealed, and recorded with the Superior Court. This is it right here, and it clearly states that my 7.6 acres, any subdivision will be prohibited below a minimum lot size of 2 acres, R80 zoning category as of 2019. The restrictive covenant described in A above this declaration shall run with and bind the property for a period of no less than 99 years from the date set below. I did that, Mr. Tippins. Thank you for forcing me. We come here before you today with respect for your authority in this matter. Accordingly, we expect respect for our history, for our hard work, and most of all, respect for the moral authority of doing the right thing. I believe that what we have done actually will provide a benefit to Mr. Tippins in trying to market his property, because when you know that your adjoining neighbor is prohibited by this declaration from developing any less than a 2-acre lot, that's going to protect you if that's the way you want to live too. Because it's not what I do, it's what my neighbor does. That's what zoning does, protects them from me and me from them. So I ask you, please deny this application, protect our 2-acre minimum lot security, and save something that we all really, really love. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kathy Stetler, and we have a little bit of a different situation because these people have put a lot of effort into this zoning, as to which we're relatively new to all of this, relatively new to all this zoning and how this impacts how we live each day. And I appreciate your time here because this issue has been visited over and over again throughout the years. My family and I, we've lived in the neighborhood for 6 years with neighbors who are conscientious to their property. We had no idea that it was because of this zoning issue that all of this impact that this had on us until recently when we were called together and this was explained to me. So I took on the initiative to, because my understanding of this is that this property doesn't need to be rezoned to be sold. And so what I did was I offered to Mr. Tippins to help him. I have some experience in real estate and to benefit the good of all of us, right? We all live in this neighborhood.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, the time's up.
Oh, we still live there, so.
Okay, Commissioner Gambrill.
Thank you, Chairman. This is one of the last protected areas out in West Cobb that does have R80. But first, I'd like to address the 230 acres of R80 that comment was made. Of that 230 acres that was rezoned to R80 back in 1999, approximately 156 of those acres are now comprised of the Hillgrove and Loving Good School District. And a portion of that property is then also currently in a trust to Young Harris. So while that 230 acres for R80 is an incredible amount, a good portion of it belongs to our school district and also then Young Harris. Within the area that is typically known as 5-family farms, we do have 2 lots that are under the 2-unit or the 2-acre minimum that they like. One of them being 1.5 acres, and that's located at 910 Castile, which is adjacent to Mr. Paulson's property. And then interestingly enough, part of the Resch property, because if you carefully look at this rezoning, it's actually 2 parcels that are being combined for this 6.67 acres. And that one corner parcel at the northwest corner, that was actually 0.76, and that was zoned R80 as well. I would like to call Kevin Moore up to the stand, please. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Well, I understand there's opposition to the R40, and you are looking to do 3 lots, which you could legally do currently. And I know we discussed this briefly last night when you took over the case. Is your applicant willing to consider the rural residential district for this property?
Yes.
Okay, and for the folks in the audience, pretty much the rural residential district is going to provide a greater compatibility, and it also helps us to adhere to the future land use map for this property. Part of the purpose and the intent of the rural residential district is to establish to provide locations for large usable acres for limited residential. In this code, it also allows a minimum lot size of 40,000 acres. Would the applicant for essentially tract 2 that was on the site plan be willing to do the 50,000 square foot lot under the RR?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. You had stated 40,000 acres, 40,000 square feet.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. Thank you. So while the code allows for 40,000 square foot, would your applicant for tract 2 be willing to still adhere to the 50,000 square foot lot size?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and then Mr. Paulson, I know in our conversation that you had with the chairman and I, another comment was the houses be pushed further back, such as yours are located in that area. Mr. Moore, would the applicant be willing to accept a 100-foot setback from Castile Road to essentially where the first home would be located on tract 2 only?
Yes. Yes, that works.
Okay. Essentially, in the R80 code, R80 requires a 75-foot front setback. One of the concerns that Mr. Paulson and Ms. Qualman brought up when she met with the chairman and I were that their homes are set further back from the road, up to 100, 150, 200 feet. So again, to kind of help keep the rural character of this area while granting the applicant essentially the smaller lot size, I've asked if he'd be willing to consider a larger setback from the front than is required by code to help keep the feel of the neighborhood.
Is it possible to, sorry, is it possible to show that?
I can, sure.
Just in relation to the adjacent homes?
And this is the specific lot that we were agreeing could be 50,000 square feet, and then the home located on the lot would have but the front setback, which would be from Castile Road, would be a minimum of 100 feet.
Okay, looking at the other map that was on here prior, Just from the GIS.
From the area map?
Yeah.
Sure, the GIS.
I don't know if that, oh, so where you have that line drawn is,
Right, where he's got the cursor
Mhm.
is where that would be.
okay.
How much is setback from the northern boundary?
Well, you're gonna have,
There's a law-
essentially, this line here to create the 50,000 square feet will be moved, I don't know, 30 or 40, 50 feet over to about right here. House would be sitting here, so I don't know what the minimum side setback is, but it's gonna be well in excess of what R80 or RR would require.
Does the R code or the R80 code have a minimum setback?
There's a minimum side setback, yes.
Right. Size, but, so how about from the northern boundary of this property? How much? 35?
Is it
25 feet?
25?
The requirement under RR for a side setback is 25 feet.
25 feet.
Which is perfectly fine.
So even under R80, it would still only be 25 feet also, right?
Off the top of my head, I don't know the R80 setbacks. They're gonna be similar to that.
So the reason I'm asking that is that it wouldn't matter if it's RR or R80, the setback would probably be close to the same.
That's correct.
It is the same.
That point
So
is the same.
it would still only be 25 feet from the northern
Yeah,
boundary.
but the difference, R40 setback is only 15 feet.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right.
Right, exactly. Yeah, okay, all
So this
right.
increases those setbacks to
Okay,
meet or exceed what R80
Sure.
provides.
all right.
Is that the same R80 border and R80?
Yes. Yes. Mhm. So before I make my motion, does anyone else on the board have questions?
I don't have a question. I just want to show some stuff, and I know Commissioner Gamble, you and I talked about this. Cornelius, I'll walk you through let's go with option one first. What I'm going to show to the board is what the zoning staff said could be done under the existing zoning. So, no, you have it right. Nope, other way, you had it right. Okay, so disregarding the pink lines, because I'm going to come back to that. The red line, dividing it into 3 rectangles, is one option that could be done without any zoning. Okay, let's go to option 2. Option 2 is very similar to what's being proposed, but you can see the red lines, and that divides it into 3 lots of 80,000 square feet. Option 3. Option 3 also is a totally legal division of the property based on the current zoning R80. And what you can see here, Mr. Paulson's property is north of this. So the concern is, of course, R80, the side setback's 25 feet. So I bring this just to show what Mr. Tippins can do today. All right, let's go back to option 1. Now, looking at the pink lines, okay, this is my drawing, and I know John would have to kind of know exactly where the dashed lines would go, but I believe that this also would meet the R80 requirement, and also could potentially address Mr. Tippin's concern about the house that's existing with not having to look at a house out the front door. But it would require variance, because what would happen is, in order to place the house on this lot to not obstruct the view or have a house right in front of the existing house, you would have to have a variance. So when you look at variances, there has to be a hardship, okay? And so my question, Mr. Moore, Mr. Tippins, whoever wants to come up at some point in time, because clearly from option 3, the house can be built 25 feet from Mr. Paulson's property. Because I agree with the opposition's concerns that basically we're like Solomon up here. We have to look at the individual property owner rights of the person coming in with the application, the right to develop their property as they see fit. within the zoning, and I've shown you 3 options here that they can follow the rules and still have a house very close to Mr. Paulson's. But then at the same time, this board has to look at the zoning, the property owner rights of the neighbors, and we have to kind of decide where is the middle ground that doesn't, or does least impact on each side's property owner rights. And my concern is the fact that option number 3 shows that a house can be very close to the property line with Mr. Paulson and still be totally legal under the R80 zoning. So then my question to Kevin and Mr. Tippins would be, would they be willing to consider something similar to my pink version of option 1, which still gives 3 lots? You have to have a very, and when the property was sold, it'd be very easy to restrict where the house can be built, addressing the concerns for the existing house. And it kind of gets us to a compromise position where, you get your 3 lots, you get the house view protected on the middle lot, we get a house maybe a little bit further away from Mr. Paulson's property, and we kind of all go home for Christmas.
Those are really great maps, Commissioner, thank you, because Diane or Paul, they can still build that house. And any of the versions, and if you go to the RR, it moves another 40 feet. The setback would be 120 feet, right?
Yeah, but Mr. Chairman, I
get-
believe that
yeah.
we can get to something similar to what Commissioner Gamble is proposing with the RR.
Right.
With still leaving everything R80, but with granting a variance on a site plan that still allows Mr. Tippins to build the house that he wants, that he wants to be able to sell the property without ruining the view of the existing house.
I get that part, but I think one of the concerns I heard at the meeting with the existing property owners is that they wanted to have the house set back more from Castile Road, okay? So even, doesn't matter what option we look at, they can still put that house up in the northeast quadrant of this property. Even if they just leave it alone R80, even if they left it alone R80, it would still do that, okay? What we're trying to do here is address what we heard from you, is that you want to move the house farther back off the road to match what your houses look like. Paul, yeah, please come up, Paul.
It's not how close that house would be to my property. That's not an issue to me as long as it meets the current code requirements. Our issue is the importance of the R80 zoning and the minimum 2-acre lot size.
Okay.
Although, as Commissioner Gambrell said, there is one lot in there that pre-existed everything that's 1.5 acres. The 0.76 acres is not an individual lot. We actually sold that to Mr. Malone, from whom Mr. Tippins bought the land, to square off his property. That little 0.76 we sold from the 5 families, 25 acres that we bought back in '98. But what we're really concerned about is keeping the R80 and the individual lot size as a minimum 2-acre without a variance going under 2 acres, because that's what best represents the character of our community, which is the primary purpose of zoning. And Mr. Tippins can put the house right where he wants to in the front. Right now, back 100 feet or even 75 feet, whether it's a 1-acre lot, 50,000 square feet, or an 80,000 square foot. It's just a matter of the size of the lot. He would get less when he went to sell his existing house, because that property would alternatively go with that. So it's a matter of his financial interests versus the security that we get from having R80 zoning, which we fought for. We put the signs up. We paid the filing fees. We came in, sat here. This is like torture for us to see. This is not fun. I'm sure you don't have a lot of fun either. But basically, all we ask, just leave things alone. We will help Mr. Tippins sell that property. And as Diane said, Mr. Tippins did admit that he still plans, whether he gets the zoning change or not, of trying to sell his property as one lot. He's already sold the back 2 acres, and now he has 4.6 acres in the front. That is sort of in the middle of the size of the home places in our community. And we will help him do that. But, if he wants to do that, he can do that right now with the zoning. He's got R80 zoning. He can cut it off. And there's no real reason to give him, cut off that lot to 1 acre, because he can still put the house there, whether it's 1 acre or 2 acres.
All right.
Do you have any
Thank you.
questions?
No. Commissioner Burrow?
Sorry.
Commissioner Gamble, RR is more restrictive than R80, correct?
Well, and that was a conversation that I had with Mr. Peterson yesterday, because if you look at how it's listed out, RR does come first before R80, but actually RR is kind of in between R80 and R40. That is one of the reasons why I was looking at the RR code to be applicable to this site plan.
Okay. But
And then also with
The-
putting the RR, putting additional restrictions back
Right.
on the property to have the setbacks as it was R80.
yeah, and the 50,000 square feet as opposed to minimum 40, what's required and that
Right,
kind of.
because under the R80 code, you're allowed to do a 25% variance to the lot size, bringing it to 60,000 square feet. The applicant tried to do various configurations to get to that 60,000 square feet, and we ended up with odd lot configurations, which isn't a benefit to anyone in this situation. That's why going back and looking at, he could achieve the 50,000, going to the RR district kind of gave us that fit because of what the RR district is for. We would still preserve the rural character of this area, yet achieve what the applicant is asking for.
Right, and deleting it to RR, you don't have any variances
There are no variances with this.
with
Actually,
the
there,
RR code.
it fits the RR code, but then we're putting additional stipulations on it to make it more restrictive.
Right, okay. I would support that.
Well, it seems to me that if their whole purpose is to sell the property, why don't we just give them time to sell the property?
Well, have they tried at R80?
I'm just saying, you know.
Hey, John, John, I realize I didn't show this to you before, but the pink lines, without knowing exactly the measurements, is that, in your general estimation, is that potentially feasible to get to R80?
So the lower dash line at the corner,
So I would take the northern part of the middle lot, adding
Okay.
it to the part that was lot 2 or whatever, and then come down and have the dash line just above the driveway.
and roughly that probably would be 80,000, but a surveyor would need to.
Right, and then by putting the house where I did, and I said you may not need a variance, I don't know, but it would then allow it would protect the view, and the driveway doesn't have to come in to there either. I mean, it could come out anywhere on Castile.
Is that one lot, that's one lot, and that's one lot?
You know, on option 1 was the red pencil line. So you had 3 rectangles going from the right of the lot to the left of the lot. What I did was I took some of the middle lot, the part above the pink dash line, and left.
I see it, yeah.
So I just,
Well, why don't we split the baby here?
Commissioner
Yeah,
Gamero, I mean, what might be worth doing, since Senator Tippins doesn't have a buyer yet, well, he has a buyer for the back two, but to look to see if there's a way, I mean, I don't know if this is doable or not. I mean, you may come back and say, well, we looked at it and it doesn't work. But is there any harm in waiting?
Yeah,
to see it?
what I would do is I agree with the commissioner. If they can't sell it, then I'll come back and support you, okay? But we've got people here who say they're willing to help them sell the property. So we don't have anything to lose by
I
waiting.
think there's a win-win for everybody here.
Right.
Senator Tippins, property owner, the 5 family
I
farms.
mean, are we allowed
owners.
to do that?
It's selling the property and it's property owner's decision. It's not the board's decision at all about how you do
I
that
get
and
that
how we
part.
market it, but that's not the board decision.
I get that, but what I'm saying here is that, look, what Commissioner Ott says, we're here, we gotta, sometimes we gotta cut the baby, all right? What we're trying to do here is find a way to maintain the character of the neighborhood, but Mr. Tippins.
But at the same time gives Mr. Tippins the ability to sell his property. I mean, the balancing act between the property owner, the applicant, and the property owners, the neighbors.
All right, so,
I think.
yeah,
all-
Lindsay,
yes.
you gotta, come on up, please.
All right.
I'd made up my mind I was not going to speak, and I probably ought not to. I've tried to market the property. I've shown the house probably 25 times in a year's time. And the refrain is always the same. Plus the fact, I mean, the house is not as it's been portrayed. The house is in good shape. I'd be glad to carry on a tour of it right now. In the last P&Z meeting, they said that sheetrock's falling off the walls. There's two rooms in the basements that are studded. The house is in good shape, but the house is 40 years old, but it's built to a construction standard. The houses today typically aren't. It's four-sided brick. It was built to be the center of this particular lot. If the house was not oriented the way it is, if it faced Luther Ward Road, it'd be an entirely different situation. It would not be a problem. But I've tried to sell the house, and people say, I'm good with the house. I can't afford 6.5 acres. I've had them tell me they can't afford it. And when they come up with the price point, there is. And the question is to see if the owner can sell a house. You can sell any house any day if you're willing to take any price. But the thing about it is you can't discount the value of the land to the extent that you do not get what the property is worth. And that's all I'm asking you. I mean, I'll guarantee you, I've lived in this community longer than anybody sitting in this room. And I know where it came from. But I think it's patently unfair for my daughter to be denied the opportunity to rezone her property to where she can sell it. Y'all hear zoning cases all the time. I've sat through several of them this year, and people go into these zoning cases. Don't get misled by the emotionalism of all you hear, because some of what you heard is not true. You've also heard that Mr. Paulson today has put 7 acres of his property into a 99-year covenant. Yet he's got 20-something acres in another land lot that's zoned R80. He's not putting under a 99-year covenant. And I say put your money where your mouth is. This property has never been under covenant that it could not be rezoned. And I ask you to permit my daughter to be able to sell this land. I mean, when I said it'd be my preference to sell the entire piece, as one, it is my preference, and it is her preference. But if people cannot afford that, you think about it. How many people do you know can buy 4.5 acres and come out and afford it? How many subdivisions do y'all zone that are 4.5 acres? I just ask you, let my daughter and her husband sell their land. A 50,000 square foot lot is a big lot. I mean, this is not moving in a tenement house in the middle of West Paces Ferry Road. These houses are nice out there. The houses that'll be built will be nice. But I ask you, let my daughter sell her house. I've tried to help her sell the property. I have personally shown the house many, many times. I know what the sticking point is. I'd appreciate your consideration. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm ready for a motion.
I do have a question. I do have a. Yes, the RR zoning that's being proposed, have you had discussion with the residents around there with respect to that new proposal?
No, I have not discussed the RR with them.
Okay.
They clearly don't want the land developed, and while I understand that, it is the property owner's right to develop his land. They want the R80, I understand that. The applicant is, originally came in wanting R40 for 4 lots. He's now reduced it to 3 lots. And that this was kind of a compromise, middle of the road, where he could sell 2 large lots and then get 1 smaller lot that is still in keeping fairly close with the area.
I've received a lot of correspondence, as I'm sure other members of the board, with the interest of the residents to keep it R80. And they've provided that they've worked for several years to do so. So I'm not saying that your initiative in changing the zoning will not be the right answer, but, you know, that was introduced to us and we've had discussion up here. But those who have had a stake or interest in that community have not been a part of that discussion, and they're listening to it. And they may be able to be warm to that option, but us having the discussion up here versus them, you know, really truly understanding your interests makes me feel uncomfortable. But in light of the volume of correspondence and the length of time reviewing all of that and their work in trying to protect the R80 in that area.
And while I understand that, I'm sorry, Commissioner Burrow, the applicant did reach out to the adjacent homeowners to try to have a meeting to discuss this for resolution, and he was told no. So there is no given.
And possibly with you there, you know, I don't know, Commissioner. I understand what you're trying to do, and I think it may work. It's just, I feel a burden with the correspondence received that I think it's worth just having a conversation at the least.
Cornelius, could you narrow down the field here and then put what the adjoining properties are zoned? Because also what we have to look at is while this is R80, this is surrounded by R30 and R20. The Quammen property and also the Paulson property is all R20. You've got R20 on the backside.
All right. Let's settle down. Let the commissioner do her job here, all right? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Can you put on where the R20 and R30 show up better? There we go. So you can see how there's R30, R20 surrounding this area. So hence staff's original recommendation for this was approval because again, staff said R40 was reasonable based on what the area is developed at. There are changing conditions out here. Back in 1999, when they first put the 230 acres into the R80, there was no discussion of Hillgrove and Loving Good High School going there. And hence that's what brought Luther Ward in and also changed things with the Rush property. So there are things that are changing out there that I think kind of warranted going to the RR. The reason why I didn't want to use the R80 code is I'm not a big fan of variances. And in order to keep the R80, we would have done more variances. And hence that's why I was looking at the RR.
No, I'm sorry. We're just gonna have to, we're gonna leave this among the board here, okay? Unless she wants to call somebody up.
I do have a comment.
Sure, go ahead, Commissioner Burrow. Yeah. Commissioner Burrow, you have the floor. No, we don't have a motion yet, no.
Well, then, do you want me to wait till the motion?
No, go ahead and make your comment.
Okay. My comment is, first of all, I know Commissioner Gambrill has met with all sides for a long time on this and to try to work something out. And I understand from your comments, you and Commissioner Gambrill met with the opposition as well. So, she has discussed it with me as well, and I support her deletion to RR. I know Commissioner Cupid has asked about if the opposition was privy to that prior to right now, but we weren't privy to the pink lines that Commissioner Ott is suggesting until right now either. So I hadn't seen any of that to weigh in on any of that. And I mean, you're gonna have a survey done and actual engineering drawings to know if that would even work. So, I'm supportive. Commissioner Gamble, RR.
Can I call Kevin Moore back up, please?
Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you, Kevin. I understand, I believe it was track 3 on the site plan. Yeah, track 3. I understand there's already contract on that?
Is that correct? Yes.
That's the 2 acres
on Luther Ward. Yes,
on the
that's
west
correct.
side?
That's correct.
Okay. The approval of this site plan, does that impact that sale?
No, it's, as I understand it, it's that 2 acres, so it doesn't impact that, correct?
Okay.
Doesn't impact that aspect, no. Correct.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Part of what I'm considering, and I'd like the board's opinion on this, is, or actually I should ask Mr. Rowling, our county attorney, would it be best to approve it just with the 2 tracks, since we know that the back 2 acres is approved right now, leaving the front without changing the zoning? Not quite sure how to handle this.
That's interesting.
So essentially, because the track 2 is what's the contentious part right now. So my question is what track 3 is, would,
Commissioner Gamble, I mean, the whole section of the property is up before the board. I don't think you can approve spot zoning for him on certain land within his tract, so.
okay. Okay, well, I'm gonna try to put forth a motion. We'll see how it goes. I'd like to make a motion to approve Z73 to the RR Rural Residential District for a maximum of 3 homes per the site plan submitted to the Planning Commission on December 3rd of 2019, with the 40,000 square foot lot being changed per the letter from Lindsay Tippins dated December 11th, 2019, to a minimum of 50,000 square feet with a front setback to be 100 feet, and then the side setback to be the same as the R80 code, and that would apply only to track 2. The district commissioner to approve the final site plan, fire department comments and recommendation, water and sewer recommendations, and DOT recommendations.
You have a second?
Second.
Comments?
I'm not saying that the RR may be where the right place to be is. I just think that, like I said earlier, I think that Senator Tippins needs to be allowed to, or his daughter needs to be allowed to zone the property. They could build 3 lots today, but I also think that a little bit of time would be beneficial in giving an opportunity to, I have no idea if the pink lines work, but it might, and everybody can be happy. Waiting would not impact the sale of the westerly tract. I'm just trying to find, I think there's a compromise out there that everybody's gonna be mostly happy, but I just think that voting on RR today, I think that it would be better to wait until February. And the outcome's gonna be no different. I mean, it isn't like there's, a lot of times when we hear zoning, there is a time issue because there's a contract and the zoning has to be done by a certain time. Otherwise, the sale goes, the sale doesn't happen. We've heard that the tract that has a buyer is not being impacted if we were to wait. So I'm not sure that there isn't value in waiting that would not have a negative impact on anyone. Because, if there was contractual obligation, well, that's a different story, but there isn't, according to what we've been told by Mr. Moore. So I just, in my mind, letting this sit until February is a better option.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I've always said that we try to find, everybody wins something. I would support this motion in February. Once I know that everybody has had a chance to see if we can find another compromise, all right? Like I said, Commissioner, we never lose by waiting for something that's clearly this sensitive. I think that one of the things I heard was, have they made an active effort to sell the property? Until Senator Tippin stood up here and said they had. I was unaware. I only heard one side of the story. All right. Well, clearly he's made an effort to do that. We up here are really want to preserve the integrity and character of the neighborhood. And I think that in this case here, if I was forced to vote today on this, I would support Commissioner Gambrill, because I've always believed in the middle road where everybody wins something. Commissioner Senator Tippin's family has the right to the best use of their property. It started out as R40, and we went to R80, so that's a compromise. If our whole approach to everything is it's all or nothing, then we'll never win anything. And right now here, I think in the effort to respond to what we're hearing from the opposition side, is that they want to preserve the integrity of the neighborhood. The bottom line here, you put three houses on this property, you're never going to, unless you really get into the weeds of this zoning, no one's going to know the difference about whether it's R80 or R1. There's 3 houses on this property, and that's what it's going to look like from the road. So I'm always of the mind that if we want, it never hurts to wait to see if we can't find one last effort to come to a compromise by all the parties. I don't think we ever lose by trying to do that. If there is no compromise in 2 months, then I'm going to default to what Commissioner Gamble wants to do here. Because I think that's a compromise, that's a reasonable one.
Has this been held before?
No. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to make a motion, all right? I can do that, right, Bill? I can make a motion that we hold this until February, hold this zoning until February. Well, that's what I'm doing.
Just vote on her motion. Just vote on.
Okay, I'm making a substitute motion that we hold this zoning until February. Okay? We have a second? We have a second. So comment.
And I'm going to make a comment, and this is going to be directed at the opposition. Just because we're holding it does not mean that come February, that Commissioner Gambrill's motion will not be what passes. This is an opportunity for both sides to sit down. I think that Commissioner Gambrill's motion is a reasonable compromise. I just think that there is one more opportunity to see if there is any other compromises. But the fact of the matter is, the RR, I mean, I think it's a rather unique compromise, and I think it would benefit both sides. So do not take my supporting holding it as saying that I have issues with Commissioner Gambrill's motion. And to Senator Tippins and his daughter, I would say that do not take my motion of holding it as that I think that you shouldn't be allowed to zone your property. I just think that one more look and that it's not jeopardizing the sale of the property is prudent.
All right, any other comments?
Yeah. Did you ask the applicant if they're willing to hold it?
No, I have not asked that question.
Well-
I guess I can, Mr. Moore. Would your applicant be willing to hold this until February?
We'll continue to work with you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know that's the Christmas present to us. I mean, look,
I'm still waiting for mine, but yes. Merry Christmas.
well, look, this is tough. We've been on this for a while.
Yes, we'd be willing to wait.
I think what we've done here clearly reflects that we're not taking this lightly. We hear both sides. This is a tough one, all right?
Yes.
So
Mr.
I
Tippins
think
did
that,
indicate that he was willing to
right,
to work
and
with.
Commissioner Gamble spent a lot of time trying to find the middle road here. I'm just seeing if we can find a little bit more breathing room to help her out here. But the bottom line, I want to reassure her that I think her motion, like Commissioner Gamble, like Bob said, is a reasonable compromise. All right, and that's what we do here in government. We try to find compromises to move things forward. So with that.
Thank you for asking.
With that, I'll call the question.
On your substitute.
My substitute motion, right? Okay, passes 5-0. Okay, thank you. Okay, all right, so we have one more left, OB 80. Sure.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Board. The last item on today's agenda is other business item number 80, which is to consider a reduction of minimum lot size for livestock from 2 acres to .5566 acres for Shara Zuxward, for property located on the west side of Big Oaks Drive, south of the Old Dallas Road, in land lot 26 of the 19th District. By way of background, the Board of Commissioners considers all reductions to minimum lot size pursuant to a code amendment to Section 134-2717A, adopted on February 27, 2018. The subject property is zoned R20 and has 24,241 square feet. The request is to reduce the lot size from 2 acres to .556 acres for livestock, which is 1 goat. The animal would be kept in a fenced enclosure in the backyard. The enclosure would not be visible from the road due to the house and the existing woods. The applicant would like to keep 1 goat on the property for therapy reasons. The neighbors on both sides have given their support for the request. At this point, the staff would ask the Board of Commissioners to conduct a public hearing and consider the proposed reduction of lot size. The applicant is present. Earlier, there was 1 person here opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon,
or
I guess.
afternoon.
Sorry.
Yes. So I have a unique situation. I'll keep it short.
Just let us know who you are first, okay?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, this is so new.
It's all right.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Zuxwart. I'm 2675 Big Oaks Drive, Marietta 30064. I'm a veteran with diagnosed PTSD, and recently a doctor had prescribed me an ESA animal, and the choice was a small pet goat. And I come across the board today to have permission to allow this after discussing with my neighbors, in which I have supported my neighbors, and I have one neighbor, which is my direct behind me neighbor, with the largest lot to support me, including many letters, which I have present. And I'm not sure what else I should say. It's pretty unique. It's not a business, it's an ESA animal.
I think all you had was said is that you're a veteran.
Yes,
And
sir.
this is a service animal.
Yes, sir.
I think that sums it all up.
Thank you,
I
sir.
mean, given those circumstances, now we know exactly the context of your request.
Thank you, sir.
So I appreciate, if you have anything else you say, you certainly have the time, but I don't think you need to say anything else. We know exactly now why you're here. And I want to thank you for your service, and I'm sure the rest of the board joins us with that. And we'll see what happens here when we hear what the recommendation is from the staff.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you for coming today. Sorry you had to wait so long. John? Okay. Those who are, okay, if you have someone else in support, please, you have 8.5 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Elrod. I am the landowner directly behind the subject property. I'm simply providing support to my neighbor as that she's got a small service animal, an ESA, and it's sort of an actual service animal. The little animal has been there for some period of time. It's behind a blind fence in a fenced-in, properly cared-for area. And I'm just here in support of that fact that I have dogs, and all she's got is a dog with a different head on it. Thank you.
I know, I saw it. Okay, thank you, sir. All right, the gentleman in opposition.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners.
I'm here in opposition to this other business item.
Can I know who you are, please?
Oh, my name is Randall Bedgood. I live at 2587 Twin Oaks Drive.
Okay.
I think y'all got several letters. I don't know how many letters you got, but a lot of people told me they wrote letters to y'all, and so you know how many you got in opposition to this. I don't know. This is livestock on less than 2 acres. Big Oaks is a R20 subdivision of about 40 homes. My wife and I are original owners of our home. It's built in 1977. And to my knowledge, there's never been any livestock kept in our neighborhood. I don't think this sets a good precedence to allow R20 subdivision to be used to keep livestock in. I think it's the health and sanitation would be a major concern, along with reduced home values and difficulty if someone wanted to sell their home in the future. Now, with that being said, folks that decide to live in an R20 or in a subdivided neighborhood should be willing to live by the rules of a subdivided neighborhood. If you want livestock, if it says 2 acres, then you ought to go out and buy your 2 acres and put your house on it, or just put your livestock on it. I know this lady says it's an emotional support animal. There's no such thing as an emotional support animal as far as the definition in ADA. You have a support animal. A support animal is supposed to be able to provide a function for you under the ADA rules. I think we got into this emotional support animal just because people started using that term, and for some reason we thought that was an acceptable thing for people to bring animals on airplanes, for people to bring them in restaurants and stuff like this. And the animal may not cause any problems, but what if somebody comes in and wants another type of animal, a larger animal, an animal that causes more of a sanitary problem? I don't know whether the VA, what their classification is. I'm a veteran. I served 2 tours in Vietnam. And I'm not running down veterans, like I said, or the VA, either one. But I just have concerns about what kind of thought process really went into approving a letter for this lady for a support animal. Like I said, she's been living there, I think, close to 2 years, maybe a little bit longer. And if she's just come up with she needs a support animal, and I don't know how you come up with what you decide on. She told me that she was allergic to cats and dogs and other animals. I have dogs myself. And just like I told Commissioner Gamble when she was meeting with me back here in the audience, I have dogs myself. I wouldn't put my neighbors through I don't keep my dogs in my backyard. I wouldn't put my neighbors through that. I rent a place to keep my dogs. That's about 13 acres. And I think a lot of, my dogs are hunting dogs. I think a lot of them, they do me a lot of support. They can go out and point a bird and I can flush it and shoot it and they'll bring it back to me. That means a lot to me. But I don't think I need to burden somebody else just because that's what my dogs do. And I know you'll probably approve this, and I know I'm probably wasting my time, but I just want you to understand that You know, when you do, like I said, when people make it, people make the decision of where they want to live. And when they make a decision of where they want to live, and then they come in and they want everybody else to conform to the way they want to live, that's not what we should be doing. I guarantee you, if my daughter was still a small child and she found out about this, I'd be up here asking you for an emotional support pony to keep in the backyard, because she was that passionate about horses. She still is today. But I'm not that kind of person. I don't think I'm putting a burden on somebody else. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, recommendation of the staff, John?
Mr. Chairman, Board, the staff would recommend the board approve the request for 12 months for one goat only.
Okay. Commissioner Gamble?
I'm gonna so move for that motion.
Okay, I have a second?
And I would.
I'll second it.
Okay, and I want to put a couple things on the record. Mrs. Zuckerworth, if you could just answer for me from there. How long have you had the goat? Okay, and her being here today is not the result of a code violation. What happened is she wanted to add a garage onto her house because her house was constructed without a garage. So when staff came out to help her with that, that is when they saw the goat and alerted her that she needed to come here. So her being here today does not have anything to do with code enforcement. I just
Okay.
wanted that on the record. Right, so as soon as she was aware of the violation, she corrected it.
So we have a motion, have a second?
Yes.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I just have one question. We got some letters of adjacent neighbors in support today, I think.
Yes.
And,
Okay, we're good.
and pictures, so I would like to ask you to submit those for the record as well.
Okay, I will submit those to the clerk for the record, the letters of support of her adjacent neighbors.
Commissioner Ott?
All right, and I'm very familiar with this whole emotional support service animals that Mr. Bedgood brought up because it has become an issue on the airplanes. My concern is that service animals are trained to be in public places, airports, airplanes, stores. Emotional support animals are not. And a matter of fact, they're not allowed in almost all places. And so I understand, I mean, I thank you for your service. I'm a veteran myself. But my concern is that because this animal is not allowed to go on trips with you, it can't go in, transit, can't go in stores, can't go in hotels, it does not serve the same purpose as a service animal. And so I have a hard time going with the motion for approval, because I just think that there is a line, a very specific line drawn with ADA and everything else between emotional support animals and service animals. And I think that even though this is an emotional support animal, it still falls on livestock in a half-acre lot.
Okay.
But then if I could ask the county attorney, but according to the Fair Housing Act, a person with a pet that is an emotional support animal is federally protected. Is that correct? It's not?
Let's,
The only thing, the person with an emotional support animal cannot be denied housing.
okay,
And
well, I'll
that is
wait to
not
see
the
what the
case
county
here.
attorney says here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with that specific provision. I did research on that.
Well, I'm just gonna say one thing. When the ADA finally catches up with what PTSD is, all right, and they're not, then maybe we can finally start coming around to look at the fact that we are finally recognizing the impact of what it is we have veterans, and what it is that takes them to finally get back to, a life that they had before they became veterans. So I'm not going to sit here and define what is or isn't, because I realize is that we are still going through a very transition nature here of what it is that we can do to restore veterans to the life they had before they served our country and made the sacrifice that resulted in this case they may live with for the rest of their life. Yes.
I just have one comment. Since this is a lot size reduction, don't we look at these case by case individual and they don't set a precedent? And wouldn't her hardship be that she's been diagnosed with PTSD?
They are case by case, Commissioner, and with the approval of this, it's just for 12 months. So if there's a problem, she's going to come back to the board and address the problem.
Okay.
And that's
Thank
part
you.
of the basis for my support, is for a limited time frame
Right.
to see what the impact will be.
So with that, I'll call the question. Passes 4-1, the commissioner not in opposition. And with that, we're adjourned.